There's a man over there.
Wrap your ears around 93.6.
Okay. The speech.
Yeah, for Kausan. Not a speech.
DJ.
Yeah. No, not a DJ, bro. Anyone who's official, come on office in your Tshwane, who can say something. Yeah?
I'm live here.
Oh shit.
Okay, but it's fine.
Yeah, but basically we just want them to be part of our celebration at Kausan. Whether we're live or not, that's why. This is something we want to do for tomorrow.
I'm gonna just after the next one, I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna call just a few people. And yeah, there'll definitely be someone. Alright, because of the message I got was different from what you're saying.
Yeah, what did he say?
Let me show you. Unless maybe there was a break in the communication.
It just smell like food, Joe.
Yeah. Oh, I was eating.
Oh yeah, Nikina Hanne there. If we're not gonna call them live, yeah, that was the idea.
Okay.
That was the idea so that we can play it on our live.
Okay.
Everything for people to rewatch or whatever on our timeline, and then
okay. Yeah. Let me. Yeah, I'm gonna come.
If not, then we can just do it live.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm thinking ahead if they can. Yeah. Perfect.
What time are you leaving?
I'm gonna leave when I'm done working.
Okay. I'm gonna come to you now.
Alright, so.
93.6, keeping you on top in Cap City. Wrap your ears around Tshwane FM 93.6. Your station, your music. 382-4936. That's 012-382-4.
93.6.
What's up? I want the money right now. I need chaos to get it. Help us to get through this shit. Jump up to get the message.
I want to rock with you.
Hot day in August 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech that would define the civil rights movement and its legacy. This, of course, was his I Have a Dream speech, delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom.
I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
The March on Washington served as a massive push for economic and political justice for African Americans. Held during the year celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, crowds marched on the National Mall to watch a variety of musical performances and speeches. Dr. King, a Baptist preacher and prominent civil rights leader, was scheduled to speak towards the end of the day, his debut on the national stage. Up until that point, King mostly addressed small crowds at black churches, rallies, or fundraisers. This time, he would be seen by nearly 250,000 people on the ground, as well as millions at home watching on television. This was an opportunity to reach a wide audience and persuade the public and the government to take action against racial injustice. The night before, King worked with a close group of advisors to get the speech just right. They worked through the night, settling on a final draft in the pre-dawn hours of August 28th. Interestingly, the phrase, "I have a dream," a phrase he used in earlier speeches, was nowhere to be found in this copy. The words wouldn't manifest until almost halfway into Dr. King's speech, when gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, who had performed earlier in the day, called out to him from the sidelines to tell them about the dream. King set his prepared remarks aside and improvised the rest, crafting a soaring speech that would sear into the minds of millions of Americans.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
The speech was divided into two parts. The first listed the injustices that African Americans faced: segregation, police brutality, disenfranchisement, and discrimination, and urged a call to nonviolent action. The second launched into King's dream of peace and racial harmony, a vision of a future in which people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I have a dream.
Highlighting King's skills as a preacher, I Have a Dream was part sermon and part poetry, using rhetorical devices like repetition, rhyme, and vivid metaphor to drive his points home. It was peppered with historic, biblical, and literary references.
Call us now, 012-382-4936. That's 012-382-493.6.
Family against black domination. I cherish the idea of a new South Africa where all South Africans are equal. For anybody who changes his principles depending on whom he is dealing, that is not a man who can lead a nation. Copen, you have not listened to my argument. If you have done so, then you have not been serious in examining it. I have replied to one of our friends here that I have refused to be drawn into the differences that exist between various communities inside the USA. You have not commented that I am going to offend anybody by refusing to involve myself in the internal affairs of the USA, of the USA. Why are you so keen that I should involve myself in the internal affairs of Cuba and Libya? No. I expect you to be consistent. I don't know if I paralyzed you. No.
City's number one.
I'm afraid, Mr. Mandela, that the paralysis does not set in quite that easily in my case. The point,
Call us now. 010-382-4936. That's 012-382-4. 93.6.
And the lady answered the telephone. I then asked, to whom am I speaking? She said, you're speaking to me. I said, well, lady, I know I'm speaking to you. But what's your name? She said, who are you to ask for my name? What's your name? I say, well, lady, as soon as you tell me your name, I'll tell you mine. But as we argued as to who should tell his or her name, she became very cross. And she said, you seem to be a backward person. Have you passed your matric? Now, matric in our country is a university entry examination. And I said, well, lady, you must be very careful. Because if the qualification to speak to you is the possession of a matric certificate, I might work hard and pass my matric and be in the same class as you are. That was treason. She said, you will never be in my class, and bang the telephone. How I wish she were here today. She would now discover that I have achieved more than pass my matric. The very right to be human is denied every day to hundreds of millions of people as a result of poverty and the unavailability of basic necessities such as food, jobs, water and shelter, education, health care, and a healthy environment. As I sit in Kunu, my village, and grow as ancient as its hills, I will continue to entertain the hope that there has emerged a cadre of leaders in my own country and region, on my continent, and in the world, which will not allow that any should be denied their freedom as we were, that any should be turned into refugees, as we were, that any should be condemned to go hungry, as we were, that any should be stripped of their human dignity, as we were. The time for the healing of the wounds has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continued bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. We commit ourselves to the construction of a complete, just, and lasting peace. We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. The sun shall never set. And so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign.
Then you were convicted in 1964 for
Call us now, 010-382-4936. That's 012-382-4. 93.6.
All of you here, you can talk right, Angiti. That's the problem. I mean, I don't talk right, I'm well spoken. Angiti in a man come school trip or go school outing. My name is Aranjara, it is school trip or school outing. With us, it was an excursion. And when you guys came back from your school trip or outing, all you someone, now why I would tell you signing starts about 100 school children died in the bus accident. When we came back from our excursion, what we saw was, thank you, Mr. Bus Driver, Bus Driver, Bus Driver. Thank you, Mr. Bus Driver, for the great drive. That was us. And if you guys don't understand, I'll break it down even further. I need to know that business. No. 2 little birds. That was us. But 2 little birds, everyone can sing, but the pronunciation will tell you what kind of a school you went to. Most of the 2 little. It's not little, it's little.
The best. Tshwane FM 93.6.
It's exactly 3 o'clock after just, it's 3 o'clock just here on the Buckle Up. We're with you between the hour 2 and 6 p.m. And thank you so much for your listening pleasure. Just a reminder that it's actually just on the eve of Youth Day. Starting out your day, we gave you something by Brenda Fassie with a song titled The Black President. And Chilunga came through with a song titled Asimbonanga. And Mahlatini came through with Lilizela Mlilizeli. And, also the Sarafina group with a song titled Sabela, Safa Sapeli Sizwe, Freedom is Coming Tomorrow as one of the other songs. And of course, just playing you some of the great speeches, men of great leaders, people like, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., people who have fought for the liberation of Black people, during that time. And of course, also, our late, Dr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela as well, and a man also who has worked tirelessly to unite South Africans. What we are seeing today is actually the result of the sweat of those men that came before us. On 01238248884, it's where you can engage with us. We are coming through to you live on Facebook. It is Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. Do check Mokete Radebe's Facebook account as well. In cases where the pages have gone off, we'll be fixing that. But I'm also live on YouTube. It's Mokete Radebe there, and this is how we're doing it, man. I've got interesting interviews that are coming through. Dr. Mashali Bamba will be speaking to us on the topic around challenges faced by learners in rural areas and gender-based violence incidences in those areas, and how do we deal with that on a more deeper level. Later on, we also look at the new regulations in terms of the law. Now, there was a Concord ruling that suggests that independent candidates will be allowed to contest independently. And I want to look at that in terms of how it reflects or how it will affect, student politics in universities. Also, just looking at, with TUT, for instance, and just looking at also a deeper issue around femicide. And I think this has been just the trend for the entire week. We'll be looking at that with, vis-a-vis COVID-19. And after 3 o'clock, remember that we're playing you back-to-back great music. I'll take this one by Ndedete Potula. The title of the song is Hulukile. And we're playing this to all the victims of gender-based violence. And during this Youth Month, and as we are just, a few hours away from celebrating Youth Day, we just want to console all the young people that are going through the most during this period rather. But also, this is a moment where we stand strong as South African men, as men from Tshwane FM, and we're saying that, in as much as we say that Black Lives Matter, even the lives of women and children matter, and there can never be a reason enough for any human being, to be killed or even abused. I know that the challenges are much far deeper than we could even imagine, but I'm honestly hoping that we'll find a way as a society to truly deepen the discussions around what is the real cause of what we are seeing today. It's 3:04. Let's play this quick song, and when we come back, we speak to Dr. Mashali Bambo, who's waiting for us on the other side of the phone. Hi, Doc. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Please stay on the line. Ready for Namos.
Yes.
Okay, please stay on the line. That episode on this one is a song titled Hulukile. As I've just alluded earlier on, that we take this moment really to bring peace to the broken hearts of many Africans in the United States that are fighting for Black Lives Matter, but the many women and young children that are living in fear in South Africa. And what is even more painful in South Africa is that they are living in fear primarily because of the perpetrators are normally, their fathers, the people they stay with, couldn't flume. A very difficult moment that I must, also confess that we are witnessing in this country. But also we want to just, bring, warmness and closure to the many young people that are forced to celebrate Youth Day tomorrow, yet their lives have never been, peaceful. The reasons vary really, and some I know that are contemplating to even take their lives, but we still want to say that hold on, don't give up. Hulukile. It's 10 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is the Buckle Up. We're with you until the hour 6 p.m. We're looking at inspiring topics today. And for our first discussion, we're joined by Professor Mashali Bambo, who got actually her PhD from the Tshwane University of Technology. And she'll be talking to us about an interesting topic, very, very, touching as well, but befitting for a moment like this, as we are on the eve of Youth Day, and we're looking at the challenges faced by learners in rural areas. But furthermore, we're taking this deeper to, the gender-based violence that is continuing in rural communities. And I think for the longest of time, we look at various facets of how gender-based violence, affects us, and sometimes we cover it and protect it, hide it, with culture and traditions. And we need to look at deeper into that to say, how do we, uproot all the evil that is happening in our society? Prof, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I must say that the promotion to professor, I think that was given by Mokete, which I accept, but it's not yet a professor. It's Dr. Lebambo, but you can call me Matia.
Okay, no, I want to talk that man. There's a difference, ne? Yeah, there's a difference between prof and doctor. But yeah, that's the last stage, Musa Saukena school. I was told growing up that scholars crèche until PhD. So my understanding is that you've reached the last stage, Saukena school, so professor.
Yeah, I accept that. Thank you so much.
Okay, but thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. And I think one of the few things that we know about you is that you're quite passionate about teaching and learning, and maybe just to say education and the emancipation, especially of young children, those that are from local schools, so to say. We remember your spelling bee. I think it did wonders, and I'm aware now that you've actually started a school. Maybe before we get into the topics of Takacheko, if you can just take us through some of the things that you've been busy with, because you know that you've been a very, very busy person.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity. So I think you've alluded to some of the projects that are dear to my heart. I'm a proud village girl. I'm a proud rural girl, all the way from Mpumalanga. And I think coming to Gauteng, where you are looking for opportunities for education and for empowerment, you always ask yourself, how do I go back and empower those that are left back home? So when we started the Marshall Rambo Foundation in 2016, 2012 rather, we wanted to improve literacy in the country and also to cultivate the culture of reading, because generally, I think especially as Black people, reading is not something that we enjoy doing or we are still doing. So I think part of the Marshall Rambo Foundation that was established in 2012 was to say that every day we are told of statistics that are not looking good in terms of South Africans are not reading, particularly in Black communities, and this has a larger impact later in the future when we now go to universities when they look for employment. So the foundation was established, to encourage young people to read, to be literate, and so that also that can open up opportunities for them in the future. So that's how we started the foundation. I think it has been great. I mean, we've seen a large number of learners coming from different parts of the country as 5 years old too. We had delegates from Zimbabwe at one point. We are having kids as far as Limpopo, in other provinces coming, to participate in some of our programs, which is the spelling bee that you spoke about. And for the past 8 years, it's been great. We are seeing the numbers improving. We are seeing, learners getting in the gist of reading, and that has cultivated that culture of reading, which we are very blessed, and we are so, happy that we have managed to do that. And just recently, this year, 2020, I then decided, beyond the foundation, beyond spelling, beyond reading, beyond literacy, what do you do, to leave a legacy, for the future generation as a Black person, especially knowing that you did not get the best quality education when you're growing up in the villages. And then I started the Marshall Rambo Academy, which is basically a preschool, and we're trying to focus on specific areas that I think are missing in your predominantly Black schools that are found in townships and in rural areas, which is, literacy, which is our foundation, and secondly, entrepreneurship, which is inspiring young people to become entrepreneurs so that they can contribute to the economy of the country. And lastly, technology. We live in the era of technology, and this is also another missing link when you go back to rural communities. So in a nutshell, those are the projects that are dear to my heart, that I've been busy with, and I'm continuing doing to this day.
Interesting. 16 minutes after 3 o'clock, and now jumping and I think in what you were saying now, you've already touched on the genesis steps of our conversation around the challenges faced by learners or students in rural areas. To the concerned citizens that are listening now, and a lot of people might not be aware of the many obstacles facing young children in rural schools. For instance, I think during this lockdown, we've seen how infrastructural development remains a big hiccup. But my understanding is that there's also a bigger question of the epistemology in terms of how teaching and learning in those areas is not as effective, so to say, compared to what we are seeing this side. And so, how can we address some of these challenges that are faced by young learners in rural areas? I know that you've done quite a lot of work in that space, but obviously you couldn't cover the entire country. But if we were just to look at some of the challenges, where do you think we can start to address some of the issues?
It's quite difficult. It's a big challenge because we need to first acknowledge what the World Bank reported in 2018, that South Africa remains one of the most unequal societies in the entire world. We live in a country where we have the most unequal society in the entire world. So that in its own will tend to an unequal education system in the country, So we need to start there to say, for example, if I may give few statistics. When we look into the Independent Examination Board, which is mainly private schools, the pass rate in the matric has always been 100%. When you come now to the National Senior Certificate, predominantly, or not even predominantly, all of them are public schools, mainly in rural areas and township communities, the pass rate is in between 78, 67, sometimes 70. That tells a lot that because we are in an unequal society, where the rich are continuing to become richer and the poor are continuing to become poorer, it becomes a problem. It affects all major sectors of our economy, major sectors of our society, just like education. So that is where the problem is, that if we do not solve infrastructure in rural communities, I mean, for example, if a school is located in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape, you cannot remove the problems of those schools from that community. So whatever problem that the community is facing, if the community does not have water, that school does not have water. If the community does not have road infrastructure, the school does not have. If there are no technological advancements in that community, it affects the school. So it's somehow difficult to attend to the problems of the school without attending to the problems of the community. So those are some of the major challenges. I mean, some of them we've spoken about them, and unfortunately, COVID-19 also exposed the inequalities in our education system. We've seen how some schools, they don't have proper ablution facilities. They don't have water today, you know. They don't have toilets. They don't have classrooms that are, you know, large enough to accommodate 40 learners in a classroom. So those are some of the, problems that we inherited from apartheid that we can't run away from. But I mean, I think 28, 27 years later, for 1994, some of them are just excuses, which I think they're not acceptable. We should have done much better in terms of sorting out the infrastructure challenges and backlogs, particularly in rural communities, so that our learners can get the best quality education, just as each and every person in the country.
Tshwane, it's 20 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is the Buckle Up. If you just jumped in, we're coming through to you live on Facebook. It is Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6, and do check the Mokete Radebe Facebook account and pages. On YouTube, it's Mokete Radebe as well, and on Twitter, it's @Tshwane FM. And we're having a lovely discussion around challenges that are faced by young girls or young learners. In fact, young learners in rural areas. Before we get to the challenges that are faced by young girls in rural areas, and Dr. Marshall Bambo is our expert, and she's speaking to us at this point in time on 012-382-4884. It's where you can join us. We are also on the Student Shop, streaming to you from any part of the country, where you can also just queue in and have a discussion with us on that. On that note, also we are celebrating Youth Month, and we are on Youth Days Eve. And we are having that discussion. If you're a young person, talk to us. Give us a call as well. Because sometimes when you speak about rural areas, it seems as though that we forget, townships that were also, disadvantaged, during spatial planning of apartheid. And today they are also facing numerous challenges. We go to parts of Atteridgeville, Hammanskraal, where there's lack of water. There's just so many challenges in that area. So give us a ring or just comment on Facebook. We're checking some of your comments then. Thank you so much for your listening pleasure at this point in time. Doc, I want us to quickly jump into, gender-based violence, and I particularly wanted you to talk about this because this is not a discussion that you started today. I mean, I remember during your graduation for your PhD, you actually had a dress dedicated to raising awareness around gender-based violence, and as a man, I think it's quite disheartening and quite embarrassing as well to be having this discussion, because in my sober senses, I don't think there's any human being that deserves to have a discussion where we negotiate for why should Masha be alive, because I think it is quite clear that each and every person deserves to be alive, and I don't think there's anything that warrants for any other individual to inflict pain to another human being. While the discussion is happening with the most well-known cases that are being brought to us to the public, there's other cases that are hidden, especially in some deep rural areas where some of this practices are brought by through culture and hidden through tradition as well. And I want us to talk about that. How do we even begin to look at the challenges faced by women in rural areas?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's one of the most underreported issues that are facing rural communities. And when I saw your invitation, I was quite happy that you are touching particularly on rural communities and rural women, because yes, every woman is fighting, the gender-based violence. That it's just, when I came in the interview today, I was quite excited for the first part, talking about education, because it's something I'm very passionate about. But now when you come to the gender-based violence, you just become like heavy-hearted, because it's not an ideal thing to even talk about. But when you talk about rural communities and women in particular, the first thing that came to my mind is that, number one, the cases in rural communities are underreported or not reported at all. If I may ask you, you are in the media, you have a radio show, and we see news on TV almost every day talking about gender-based violence, women that are going missing, killed. How many of those that were reported, particularly in rural communities, where you can recall, a particular media house that was, stationed in a particular rural community to investigate and ask questions around what's going on in these rural communities. This thing is really difficult for outspoken women like ourselves, that are living in the city, that have access to a police station a kilometer away from where you stay. Now, when you take it down to rural communities, one, no access to reporting such cases. Two, no access to infrastructure in terms of, accessibility to police stations. How do you go about reporting? Do you have telephones for two parties? In case you are attacked at night by your husband, by your partner, you can just quickly call, So it's more like the issue of education that we spoke about earlier, that when you are in a privileged community, if you are in an affluent community, you are better off because you are closer to resources. But now when you go to a rural community, it's something completely different. That is also perpetuated by the patriarchal cultural customs and norms, that you earlier alluded to say, when you are I'm a living testimony in terms of coming from a rural community where you are brought up to tolerate negative masculinity practices that are aimed to oppressing women. You have phrases like there's a phrase that says you must respect a man, and you are also reminded that those are phrases that have brought us up. We grew up practicing saying them loud. And every time you open your mouth, you're cautioned around, you can't do that, you can't speak to them like that. So these are, I think, patriarchal cultural customs and norms. And I love my African tradition and culture. I practice it, I respect it so much. But we need to be very honest to ourselves and say that they have been for a very long time patriarchal cultural customs and norms that have to date oppressed women, and as a result we are seeing the surge of gender-based violence that we've seen in the past few months or years. So it has been that, and I think this generation, I think, really has an important role to play, to go back to our parents, to our aunts, to our uncles. As a man, Mokete, you're also responsible to go back to your family and to say, this is how life is today. We cannot continue oppressing women. This is not right. I also have the responsibility to go back to Mpumalanga and Bushbuck and educate, in collaboration with other movements and organizations that are for women, So I think that is a very important thing that you are raising. And I think in terms of educating, we need to start thinking. Also, providing the infrastructure, how many police stations we have in rural communities, how effective are they? How many women units, gender-based violence units we have within those police stations where a woman can just walk in and report a case and be guaranteed that that husband or that partner, that neighbor, that uncle will be arrested on the spot. So it's a whole lot of issues, but the most important thing is to acknowledge that we've been very unfair to rural communities. We've not been reporting on their challenges, and they've had even dire, I think, very dire things than most of us today.
And from your observation personally, do you think this problem is systematic, or it's just normalized, unruly habits in societies? Systematic in a sense that it is given that when a boy child is raised, the system is in place to make sure that he will have, a dominant sort of a position over a girl child, and vis-a-vis on whether this is just learned behaviors that were normalized when a boy goes outside among their peers, that, okay, we are going to oppress girls. So from where you're looking at it, is it something that it was systematically introduced in families as we are raised, or it's just something that we're learning outside through the pressures that we have normalized as people outside?
I think fundamentally it is systematic. The reason why we are battling, to overcome this huge challenge of gender-based violence, much as we are battling to overcome racism, is a systematic challenge. So if it was just something that you learn along the way and you grow up, I think we would have won the fight against racism or the fight against gender-based violence. What makes it even more difficult is that these are things that are systematic. We were born into them, we were introduced to them, and so it becomes very difficult for you to know what is right compared to what is wrong. Growing up, you are taught that when you are aggressing a man, you must kneel down. And what is the response of that particular man that you are kneeling down to? Ideally, what is going on? What do they think of that gesture? Are they seeing it as just a cultural practice, or that a woman is bowing down to me? And what is the consequence of that particular practice, if we just call it that? So these are systematic things that they go as far back. Our mothers were born into those systems, and it's far back in many generations as we can count. And unfortunately, the reason why, and I was saying the other day when I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, to say the reason why we are seeing these numbers, personally, I could be corrected. I think it's because women are fighting back. Not physically fighting back, but they are fighting back by saying, I will not tolerate abuse. I will not tolerate, in the name of I am a man and you are a woman, and in the or I am not anyone's knife, I am walking away. Because of that retaliation, that's why we are seeing this increase. And unfortunately, it's not a pleasant thing to say, but we have to be very much honest that the generations before us saying, and that kind of covered everything that was happening. History is not new. The fact that women have been abused and beaten up and raped, and it's not a new phenomenon. We've seen it happen. And unfortunately, we were told, you must not be involved. So it was covered in the name of, you must not be involved. This is not anybody's business. Let's leave it to sort it out as a family. Also, the issue of child marriage, that we are also under-reporting about. Exactly. Why was it not reported? It happens most of the time in rural areas. That's because we were told we can't talk about it. The arrangement, there are two families. So what we are seeing today is a retaliation of this generation saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tolerate that. That is being disrespectful. That is being abusive. So because of that, we are seeing, our brothers and uncles failing to understand why is it that the previous generation could tolerate it and we are not tolerating it. And now you have been doing it as being disrespectful, being an activist, being a feminist, and there's a whole debate on social media from my brothers, which was very disappointing. I saw yesterday in the news and also on social media saying, this is just a movement for activists and feminists. So every time you speak about gender-based violence, you are branded as a feminist and as an activist. People are not seeing it as a problem that affects everybody in the community. Until it happens to your daughter, that's when you realize it's a problem. And you should not wait until it happens to someone that you love. I think it's important that all of us, directly or indirectly affected, we should speak out about this injustices against women.
It's 32 minutes after the hour, 3 o'clock, and Dr. Marsha Libambo is on the line, and she's speaking to us at this point in time. And I think while also raising the awareness around gender-based violence, we, constantly, remind all the victims, irrespective of how long it has happened. There is, a hotline for that, and I know, how depressing, the situation can be to one, and we urge you that don't give up. Don't give up on trying to bring the perpetrator to book, no matter how powerful they may appear in society. The long hand of the law has no limits. It can reach wherever we think it cannot. Doc, I want to bring to your attention, and I want to get your opinion on this one. Now, the current generation, and I think for quite a while, we've been labeled as a doomed generation, and primarily is because of those that came before us had labeled us as children who are disobeying the customs that were laid down before us. Similarly, we were seen as a generation that seems to reject the way, the former ways, and neglecting our culture, our traditions. And among our culture, just name quite a few things. Among our culture was the practice of, either marrying more than a single wife. Among our culture would have been, the practice, how a woman is being married, the fact that it will be arranged marriages, and you find that our generation is not something that we easily accepted. The fact that, there are just so many things that would happen, and sometimes due to religious, reasons, or the religion that one has chosen, they will, reject some of the, cultural practices, feeling that these appear to be oppressive in nature. I mean, yesterday when we were watching, we had Jordan 9, and it was quite, painful because sometimes it appears as a joke. But there's this gentleman who said he went out to go and sleep and cheat with another woman because his wife doesn't give birth, and it actually brought back to me to that often at times when people get married, especially as young people, it seems as if the goal is for you to have babies, and that if I'm married to you and you can't have babies, then it seems as if there's something abnormal about our marriage. And those are some of the things that the current generation had neglected. And it seems as if those that came before us felt that these ones are not, sustaining the legacy of our people. And also they are not, within the norms that we've known. And those are some of the challenges that we had seen. But also there's now in the academic space, the discussion around Africanism and decoloniality. But vis-a-vis, there's also the discussion around change, continuity, because, culture and tradition is regarded as something that is not static. It evolves over time. My question is, in trying to solve some of these issues and raising awareness without appearing as if we're too educated or we're too sophisticated for our culture and we're not disrespectful, how would you advise young men like myself, young women that are listening at home, to be able to raise these issues in a manner that won't appear as if they are, being disrespected? Because of the majority of young people, and I'll tell you the truth now, is that their fear is to be labeled, is to be disowned and labeled as Masha Olana le PhD, le ditjhelete, jwanong ha sa re batla rona, she's too good for us, because of some often those are some of the challenges. And, there's one gentleman, I think yesterday or the day before, who said, actually, we are afraid of other men ourselves. That's why we can't even call them out, because of it has been normalized that what they are doing, this masculinity, is actually a sense of strength. And this is what all men should possess. So in the nutshell, how would we approach this, especially, trying to, disassemble the systematic oppression that is also, assisting men who want to, abuse women?
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, because I think we have a tendency of hiding bad behavior, injustices in the name of culture. Culture is simply a social behavior of a particular society, and I'd love to believe we are talking about a good social behavior of a particular society. And we cannot, not always, whenever you are doing something wrong and any injustice against a fellow human being, let's start there. Let's forget about, labeling ourselves as men and women. First of all, when you kill a woman, when you rape a woman, when you beat up a woman, what does that have to do with culture, and traditions and African? And I think we are just really, tarnishing the African culture in a very negative way, to say it is meant to to oppress women. It was never about that, I think, in the first place. I think we just found a way of putting in bad behaviors in the name of culture, which is completely unacceptable, because the same culture and the traditions that we refer to, as Africans, they should not, enforce brutality of women and killing of women. I think it's meant to celebrate Africanism and who we are as an African people, our roots, what makes us happy, what makes us a family unit. And those things, I don't think they had anything to do with the injustices that we are seeing today. The part about what would be the best advice for men, women, everyone, it's difficult. Even our government is failing at it, which is unfortunate and quite, I think, disappointing for me to see that the only thing we're seeing is just statements coming from, the presidencies and not particularly the president, calling out this gender-based violence and speaking out only on it. That, I think, is one of the missed opportunities that the leadership that we have shown during COVID-19 we are not seeing with the gender-based violence. And that is true. I mean, we can argue and disagree, but personally, I think that's another point that we need to talk about. The response that we are seeing from our government is not enough. So going back to the issue of advising, I think the most important thing is to acknowledge that wrong is wrong. It has nothing to do with culture. It has nothing to do with being black or African. Wrong is wrong. Killing a woman has nothing to do with that. It's simply that. It's wrong. And I think also, I don't like this whole, notion that women are dying because they tolerate abuse. They are dying because they are living. So if they were not living, they would not be dying. So we need to stop accusing women of saying, they stayed too long. That's why this guy continued to. Why did you not leave? The moment a woman is killed, people are accusing her of staying too long. And I'm saying, but that's the reason why they were killed, for leaving. So I think also we need to educate ourselves in terms of, those rooted problems of what women face in marriages and relationships, and really try and educate ourselves and not just use Twitter to educate ourselves, because I think the debate is now taking a wrong turn, and now the blame is on women than what society is facing today. So I think the most important thing is to speak out, and I said it on one of my Facebook pages a couple of days ago, that I'm not deep and what do you say when a friend of yours comes and says, what do you say? What is your response? What do you say to your friends? You are talking, you are having a nice time, and you're talking about girls, and you're like, I want that one. And you know the person is married or has a girlfriend. What is your response? And you can just laugh along? Do you just tag along? Do you just keep quiet? What is your responsibility to say, I'm not going to have a friend of mine who's going to disrespect women, and now you're talking of another woman, as far as I'm concerned, you're married. Do you say that? It is your responsibility, because this is our country, with our sisters and our mothers, that are going through this whole thing. So this whole thing that we also expecting so much from a particular formal life structure is one thing, but also on a day-to-day basis, what are the conversations that you are having personally, individually, as a man with other fellow brothers? What are also some of the conversations that Marsha is having with her friends? If a friend of mine comes to me and says, he's cheating on me, do I say Tshwane? Or what is my immediate response? And I think also we need to change the conversation, because what is building us is it's not necessarily the formal life structure from government, but it's also our day-to-day conversations and interactions, and just being honest. Be a brother, your sister's keeper, if I may say that. If a person is saying something completely negative, derogatory terms that are used on women, you don't just have to laugh along with the guy. Call that guy to order. Stop it. You can't say that to a woman. You need to respect him and be fair. So I think that could also be another way of really trying to get everybody involved.
It's 42 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is Dr. Marsha Lebambo speaking to us. I wish I could have you for the entire 5 hours. I think there's just so many things that you're saying that I wish we could expand with. But thank you so much for the time that you've given us with you. You've really touched the nerve, and you've raised quite key points. And I think we're quite grateful to have had you today. Thank you so much, Doc.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Tshwane, it's 43 minutes after 3 o'clock. That is Dr. Marsha Lebambo. I wish we could have had her longer. I think the next time we have Dr. Masha, it must be for about 2 hours. Sometimes we have these conversations, and sometimes things are based on opinions, and I like how she kept on giving reflections to references that we from time to time not pay attention to. And sometimes our opinions on other people's lives is based on what we see on social media, and that is where the problem is. And I like the fact that she touched on that. We take a quick break. When we come back, we speak to Mr. Themba Matibe, all the way from the Wits University.
Beginning of the show is that during this 27 years, I mean, babies are born, people come into the world who've never heard you. You became almost a man of mythical proportions. Do you find it difficult to live up to that myth? Or did you when you first came out of prison, because people looked at you as though you were not even real? There you were. Nobody even knew, because your photos were bad. Nobody even knew what to expect you would look like. And so did you find that difficult to live up to whatever that was created?
Well, that is one of the things that worried me, to be raised to the position of a semi-god. Because then you are no longer a human being.
Right.
Themba,
I
are you ready for us?
to be known as Mandela,
Please stay on the
a
line.
man with witnesses.
Okay, cool.
Sharp.
Some of which
Am I gonna send email to my TV, ne?
Yeah.
Especially because I knew it was not the contribution of an individual which would bring about liberation and the peaceful transformation of the country. And my first task when I came out was to destroy that myth, that I was something other than an ordinary human being. Whatever position I occupied, it was as a result of my colleagues and my comrades in the movement who had decided in their wisdom to use me for the purpose of focusing the attention of the country and the international community on me.
You say
not because I had any better virtues than themselves, but because this was their decision.
This is Tshwane FM 93.6. 93.6.
Gone 45 minutes after the hour, 3 o'clock, and earlier on that was Dr. Masha Lebambo speaking to us. And really the discussion was around challenges faced by learners and students in rural schools, and furthermore just expanding into gender-based violence. If in case you're wondering why we're having that discussion, there's been a scourge of violent incidents that have been picked up on women, and I think year in, year out we always have this conversation, quite embarrassing and disheartening, so to say, and I think it's something that we shouldn't be even discussing. And as a man, I think I'm among those that feel, quite embarrassed to even call myself a man, living in a society where women are afraid of a species that are similar to me. But we're now speaking to Mr. Themba Matibe, and he's going to talk to us regarding the new judicial, or rather the new announcement from the law, or rather ruling regarding the independence of candidates during elections. But furthermore, we're going to jump into femicide as well, and just maybe speaking about the youth. Mr. Matibe holds a bachelor degree in political science, international relations, and law. That is a bachelor of laws LLB, and currently studying for a master's of law in commercial and business transaction law, and currently holding a position as a specialist in the leader of executive business. And he's from the Wits University of Technology, one of the best universities in Africa when it comes to law. And he constantly reminds us that, which is a very good thing, because sometimes if you don't remind people of the value that you hold, people tend to forget about it. And this is why we are where we are today. 47 minutes have gone since the hour, 3 o'clock. On 012324884, we're checking some of your calls. On 08253858 5810, I'm taking your WhatsApp and voice notes for the listeners playlist as well. It's Youth Day. It's happening tomorrow, and we are on the eve of it. We're playing you, political content. We're playing you struggle songs, and we're making sure that you're in tune. But more so, you are emancipated and woke in this current dispensation. On Facebook, it is Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. I am Mokete Radebe on Facebook. We're coming through to you live there. While on YouTube, do check Mokete Radebe. We're coming through to you live there as well. On the student shop, just click Tshwane FM and you will be with us, man. Mr. Mativ is joining us on the line. Temba, thank you so much for joining us, my brother, and a great evening to you.
Good afternoon, Mokete. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon also to your listeners.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I just need to give a disclaimer, first of all, that the views that I'm about to express are that of my own and not that of my employer. As a legal scholar and as a legal graduate, so everything that I'll be saying basically from the perspective of a critical jurisprudence student and a student who has done constitutional law and who also constantly engages with the material and the new developments of the law in the country.
Yeah, you see, people who know the law, but they put a disclaimer first. Interview disclaimer, but thank you so much, Temba. No, we've captured that. I think in the nutshell, I've introduced your background in terms of the law, but I want us to quickly jump into what was making headlines of recent. The ruling, the court ruling regarding elections. A brief interpretation in layman's terms, what exactly did that mean?
So basically, that case is basically between New Nations Movement and the President of the Republic of South Africa. So what the New Nations Movement, it was about 4 applicants against the President, the Minister of Home Affairs, the Speaker of Parliament. They were arguing that the Electoral Act, the act that governs who runs and when the elections run, how elections ran, and so forth, was unjustifiably limiting their rights. So by unjustifiably, they were arguing that it restricts independent candidates who are adult citizens from running for public office or for standing for public office as independents. So you find that rather the act was the act previously, before it was declared unconstitutional by the court, was that it never allowed independents to run, especially at the national level. But at a municipal level, it permitted that. So the Constitutional Court was faced with an appeal that came from the Western Cape High Court, because the New Nation Movement is a movement that started in the Western Cape, where they wanted to contest at the provincial level, but they could not contest. Therefore, they took it to court, and then they appealed the judgment, because the Western Cape High Court agreed with IEC in saying that the act is correct and it's lawful. Then it went to the Concord. So with the Concord, they were faced with interpreting 2 rights. So basically Section 18 and also Section 19, which deals with the right to vote. So in that judgment, you see that the court said it's unconstitutional insofar as it makes it impossible for candidates to stand for political office without being members of political parties. So the court was saying that you can't force people to become members of political parties so that they can stand for public office. Rather, because of Section 19 subsection 3 allows that for people to stand because of your right to vote, considering our historic past, where it comes from, that it links to human dignity, the right that people fought for. June 16 actually coincides and highlights the importance of those rights to vote and the right to make your own democratic choice. So basically, what it allows, it said people are not allowed to vote, and then the court came to a conclusion and it said, no, that is unlawful. Parliament must go and amend that act. So by amending that act, they said it's suspended for 24 months. It's invalid, but the invalidation suspended for 24 months, meaning the 24-month period is the time that Parliament has to go and fix that act and ratify it and allow for individuals to contest as independents. But what most important to what stood out for me was that in that very same judgment, not all the justices agreed. So there was a justice, Justice Solomon, where he said he agrees that this judgment must be appealed, but he disagrees with the rationale and the reasoning behind saying that the current Electoral Act has obstacles. It does not allow for individuals to contest. So he was of the view that already parties in Parliament are about proportional representation, and it's all about equality and having all voices being heard in Parliament. There is why you find that all the small parties, for example, like your ATM and so on, they will fight in having 2 or 1 seat in Parliament if after polls contesting, because of they want to try and accommodate all the other parties, because of seats in Parliament, for example, are allocated according to the number of votes that you get. So Justice Solomon was disagreeing with his fellow went on the bench, said the act is invalid. So Parliament is given time to fix that.
Should Parliament change it? What would be the direct implications of that change? I mean, looking at it from an advantageous point of view, if I'm an ordinary citizen, what advantages would I benefit should that change? Should that be changed?
So the advantage that you benefit is that you can stand at a provincial level for to be an independent candidate, and it will allow people with financial muscle, people who are rich, businessmen, just like in the USA, for example. Donald Trump is one of those people who made it because of he won at the electoral college system and because he had money. So if you have money, it's easy for you to mobilize resources and contest maybe at a provincial level and get a seat and get representation into the legislature, the provincial legislature, or the National Assembly. But the advantage is, I think, the advantage is just that you have the right to contest. But I believe that the cons to it actually outweigh the advantage by allowing this, because I think that by firstly, for you to make it into the Parliament of South Africa, you need 0.25% of the votes to make it in. I think everyone knows Claudia was complaining that Claudia was very popular, but didn't make it to Parliament. Another thing, how the spatial planning of South Africa is done, or the spatial planning because of apartheid, where we come from, is that our country was our areas are so remote from each other. There's no way that as an independent person without the financial resources or the area, like for Gauteng, for example, thinking that you can run a campaign as an independent, you need a lot of resources. You need an entire team, and you also need experts in elections to help you win. And for example, the ANC is winning elections because they have a traditional method of understanding of how to mobilize, and because of there's so many branches and so forth that's going on, and resources being pumped into elections. So I also stand by saying that even in the local government, we've always had independence contests, but they still lost. Because of what? Because of they don't have the necessary manpower. You find that the region is too big. For example, Tshwane, Hammanskraal is far from Pretoria West and Pretoria East and so forth. So it is going to be difficult, but I had the right step in the right direction of saying maybe we should perhaps have a hybrid system of elections in South Africa. But I don't see it working in the immediate. It's not going to work. I don't think so.
Now, how will this now? Will it not cause divisions within the bigger political parties? I mean, I'm looking at your EFF, DA, ANC, where we've seen factional politics being so big in those spaces. Won't we see people independently, although they're within an organization? Or you find that people within organization, for instance, I mean, you'd see that in regions there's those that feel that they need to be in the NEC or should be considered as ministers. Marabasa were considered. Won't it create those divisions where people now feel that no, I can stand up in Mokete?
What you're raising is what one of people that I look up to and one of the critical legal jurisprudence scholars who speaks about Peggy Chambambasa, who also speaks a lot on employment law, transformation, and 4IR. Peggy Chambambasa argues that sectional politics, because of what has happened now, because of the judgment, sectional politics in organizations will at least stop. Manipulation of those processes will come to an end. Because, for example, if I am popular enough in my region, I can actually stand if the list gets manipulated to a point where I get thrown out. But again, it comes back to the issue of resources. Do you have enough resources to stand? Because remember, also IEC has its own requirements, so you need to pay a certain amount of money for you to be able to be registered onto the ballot box, the ballot paper to contest. So yes, it can assist in dealing with those sectional politics, and luckily enough, perhaps let's hope that it will kill the culture of people being chased out of organizations or where democratic processes are manipulated to suit a certain faction or a certain agenda.
But now, raising the financial, requirements with IEC, is it not economic exclusion, especially given now that we are quite aware that there's the individuals that won't have the financial masses to be able to register with IEC? Won't it be seen as economic exclusion in that regard?
It does to to a certain extent, but it's the requirements that they have. And this goes back now to an article I was reading also in the City Press in the week about this. It's written by the former SRP president of this, Governor, where he argues that if we were to allow this judgment does not actually do any justice or any good. It actually brings in liberalism, which is going to masquerade in this country and cause in a country which has so much poverty and inequality, where it makes it easy for those with money and candidates of money to be able to control this country, which Karl Marx and Antonio Gramsci always warned against. And you find that, for example, Mokete makes an example where he says, who has never been unemployed for 7 years and does not have is offered land by an organization, and an individual by 10 comes and offers him bread. Which one will he take whereas he's hungry, he's starving, he lives in poor living conditions? He will choose the bread, the quickest route because of land, because what is he going to do with the land? He does not have money. So it creates the culture that it is, to be honest and truthful with you, those with money are still going to be able to contain. This judgment is creating leeway for them to actually control the country and control the system.
Interesting. It's 59 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you just jumped in, this is the Buckle Up, and I'm with you until 6 p.m. My name is Mokete Radebe. On the line, we're speaking to our law expert, that is Mr. Themba Matibe, all the way from the Wits University. We are looking at the new, regulations, or rather that are proposed to, regulations that will change the electoral system and allow independent candidates. Themba, going into universities, and universities like TUT, for instance, they are using structures to vote. What kind of impact do you think this will have on student politics?
I think what it's doing is affirming what universities are actually doing, where you find, and I was actually doing some comparison and some research in terms of that. So, for example, you find that at TUT you contest as parties and you get seats allocated according to the number of votes. Again, it's a game of resources versus a good campaign strategy and having manpower to go and reach out to those voters. But then, I don't know if you've noticed that universities like this, the UCTs, they always, they say SRP candidates contest as independents, but then they group themselves into a field using an organization to campaign. So that is why it has become so difficult, for example, to remove SRP members, for example, like the UCT from SRC. I know at UCT we saw Stephen Ofu, who happens to be a doctor right now. He became the first president I know who was an independent candidate of the SRC. And then at first, it was only last year when we got 2 independent candidates who won SRC elections. Ever since, it never happened for the past 5 years when I was at first, because it was so difficult for me to campaign because we have like about 5 campuses, and out of those 5 campuses, you must campaign at all of them. And for you to make it, you need at least a minimum of above 2,000 votes. And taking into account the fact that you vote online, that's also another thing. So the whole culture thing that what vice chancellors are doing, which is prone to saying that people must contest as independent candidates, the whole slate issue is your own thing when you're campaigning, it's fine, but it is slowly coming to a point where we're going to have independent contest. So I also looked at UP, for example. At UP, they contest a selection system. So what's in UCT, you don't contest for positions. And TUT, you don't contest for positions. You rather contest as you make it into the best 15 number of votes. And then once you've made it in, then you guys go and constitute amongst yourselves. But at UP and University of Free State, it's different. You contest for positions. So in that type of system, it allows you, makes it easy for you to contest. If you contest in president, it's easy for an independent to win. For example, at UP, I remember a year ago, and the current sitting president, David, actually was the second year, and was very well known in sports, was liked, and even now, he's serving the second term as president of the SRC. David contested as an independent candidate. So that just comes to show you that being independent means if this just is university were to say that people must contest for positions, that means being independent is going to be easy because we can contest on a popularity basis, and whoever wins wins.
Interesting. 3 after 4 o'clock. Themba, let's move now to femicide. Before we speak about Youth Day, we've seen the scourge of how violent incidents have been happening, and really the killings of young women, so to say, as well. I mean, just in front of me now, there's just another article that was shared by IOL just about 40 minutes ago, where they're saying that a decomposing body of a woman believed to be 25 years old has been found along the Golden Highway in the south of Johannesburg. The woman's hands were tied with rope and stuffed in a bag. Painful. What do you think is the problem? And I remember raising this as well in one of the law classes on whether has the law succeeded in providing enough corrective measures, or stamping the authority enough to lead a society that abides by the law. And I was asking this primarily because there's been discussions, and I saw even there's people running petitions around the fact that they must bring back the the death penalty, and I remember quite correctly that the death penalty is something that might definitely not come, because I mean, part of the South African Constitution is that people have got a right to life, but I was just looking at this and thinking, what could we do to really stop this?
So I think first and foremost, it's a culture that there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen, and it's a culture that needs to start at a young age.
Yeah.
Young men, young boys must be taught from home how to treat women and how to respect women, and that the fact that when a woman says no, no means no. We need to unlearn a lot of things and a lot of toxic and vile behavior. But more than anything, we also need to reprimand, and we need a strong education system where our mothers, our brothers and sisters, and even primarily our fathers take a stand and stand up in front and say, we need to protect, enough is enough, and we need to protect our women. But protecting them in the following sense, and you see, I'm also wrong for saying our women. We need to protect the women of South Africa. As soon as we have the level of entitlement that exists in society and the culture that it's our women, these women, we own them. That's wrong. That starts there. The whole stereotype that exists in households where women or female girl children are told that you must wash dishes, the male one is much more stronger than you, and so forth. When a male one can denounce or speak down on their sister at home, it's wrong. Those cultures need to be need to be dealt with decisively. So I believe that there must be serious education that happens in terms of dealing with issues of gender-based violence and dealing with issues of femicide. But more than anything, we also need to deal with the culture that we also need to accept that we have a sick society where men they don't want to speak out. They want to use their anger. They think the only way to express their anger and their feelings is through violence. That's wrong. Men, we must normalize the culture of going for counseling. We must normalize the culture of speaking out when something is wrong and being able to speak. And that violence is not the solution to all problems. So in terms of government, I just recently heard that they passed the Civil and Criminal Matters amendment bill on sexual offences. So this bill basically initially used to say that on prosecution for there was a limit in terms of how much can you give, what is the sentence that can be passed on a person. So it usually leads to 20 years. If you rape, it will be end of 20 years. 20 years would be the most. So in this regard, it's being changed to say that it must be 20 years is just the starting, so it must be unlimited. So it's fine that you can be prosecuted maybe 30, 40 years. Maybe with that, the assistance. But again, the bill is just past Parliament. It needs to go to the ADOP. It's going to be a long process. In the meanwhile, the problem that we're faced with is the issues of enforcement and issues of protection of women in the country. We don't have, even our police officers, it's a problem that we see. They are not enforcing the law in such a way that is really in a speedy manner, and it's really helpful because it's really problematic because it's a sick society that we're faced with, and it needs even faith groups, interest groups, political organizations to come together and not politics using this issue. But again, in this regard, try and find solutions. We've had commissions, but where is those recommendations of those commissions? When are they being implemented? It can't be that all the time when something like this happens, we'll see it in a newspaper article, the country will write statements, there'll be a riot, and then there'll be a state funeral, the state will offer a state funeral, and then post that state funeral, then the state will say, I've instructed Banban to do so and so. what if we like? Why are you still instructing? Why are you still working on accommodation? Show us the fruits of the work. I think a lot of effort and a lot of budget should be dedicated towards that. I can imagine the number of GBV cases, how they've increased during this lockdown period. It's really sad, but there must be a lot more done in terms of beyond the recommendations, but now we must see implementation. And seeing this act being passed, this amendment being passed, it should have step in the right direction, but I think there must be more change that should be done, especially on the enforcement side and how even the courts are dealing with these matters. There should be a specialized court, and these courts should run on a daily basis on such matters because it's really, really, really problematic. Even our police officers, they should be capacitated enough to deal with these type of crimes and murders. We should not take them 18 months, almost 18 months to crack a case.
I hear you. It's 9 minutes after 4 o'clock. We are on the eve of Youth Day. Your message to young people?
My message to young people is that young people should actually stand up and take charge. The whole notion and the idea of saying that you are the future, that's nonsense. We're young but capable. Yes, we're not discarding the fact that old people have the institutional memory, but old people must also make way and make space that young people take charge and we take charge of our own issues. There is no way that any other young old person will represent my views or understand what is it that I want. Yes, they have experience and they know, but young people should take charge, and the whole idea of that you are the future. Young people should explore that myth. The future is now. It's not going to be tomorrow. The youth of today, we've been waiting for far too long. We must see about change. We must see about young people ascending to positions of power. We must see young people being given responsibility and that they make mistakes. And at the same time, young people must also allow to be groomed in the process. But in grooming does not mean that you must control me, you must be a hot sister or a hot man. Rather be what be a mentor, be a guiding light. And to all the other young people out there, I'd like to say to you guys, opportunities are there. Keep the doors down, ask for help when you need help, and push and make it work. It is going to work.
Interesting. It's 10 minutes after 4 o'clock. That is Mr. Themba Matibe from the Wits University speaking to us on that point. Themba, thank you so much for speaking to us, my brother, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you to your listeners as well. Have a good, great evening.
Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you.
Tshwane, we're going to just go to an end break. Sylvester is waiting for us. Kimunalo Campus Crash, and we'll also be speaking to Tiamo, who'll be joining us on the line and on the discussion. These new regulations. But before we get into that, let's listen to a bit of Chris Hani here.
Has not failed. That like any other system, it is prone to public mistakes by groups and individuals who implement.
Is it? Yeah. That's all right. Where's your mask? Okay, it's fine.
It has been responsible for the most devastating wars. First World War, the Second World War. Capitalism has seen the most serious depression in the 30s, where millions of people lost their jobs. Equally, socialism is going through a turbulent period. It has collapsed virtually in a number of European countries. It is experiencing some serious traumas in the Soviet Union. And me, as a communist, I see this as temporary failure, because the basic contradictions of any capitalist society remain: exploitation, class domination, poverty, and unemployment. And I believe workers will never accept capitalism as a solution. But I think as communists, we have got to be honest and realistic and accept that serious mistakes have been made in the course of implementation of socialism. Democracy has been violated. The party degenerated into a democracy which saw itself as the only force leading society into a new system, if you like. It ignored the need to organize mass democratic organizations so that as many people should be involved in the fight to improve the lives of the workers and other working people. It introduced in a lot of cases methods which were very undemocratic, where thousands of people found themselves in prisons on the basis of views which were not accepted by communists.
Wrap your ears around 93.6.
What's up? Yo, what's up? You're listening to the best.
Look out! It's coming towards you.
The best.
Tshwane FM 93.6.
Let's get ready, baby.
Amanda. Long live the undying spirit of Winnie Mandela. Long live. Long live the defiant spirit of Winnie Mandela. Long live. Long live the fighting spirit of Winnie Mandela. Long live. Forward to expropriation of land without compensation. Forward. Forward to expropriation of land without compensation. Forward. Forward to nationalization of mines and banks. Forward. Amanda. Thank you very much, program directors, members of the family, particularly Mama Zenane and Mama Zinzi, the Matikizela family and Mandela family, religious leaders, leadership of the judiciary under the capable leadership of Chief Justice Mokwe Mokwe, members of parliament, members of the executive, the ruling party and all political formations that are here, the leadership of the Youth League, the leadership of the Women's League, the leadership of COSAS, the international dignitaries, leaders of the EFF led by the capable leader, our Deputy President Floyd Shivambu, commissars, commanders, generals of Mkhonto Esizwe.
What are you listening to? Huh? What are you listening to? Huh? What are you listening to?
Tshwane FM, you don't go.
Tshwane FM 93.6.
Open revolutionary because she never sold out. We should all be happy because her name will be written in the eternal book of life, the book of all who died for the betterment of all. The people of Soweto, please never forget the name of Mama Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. The best way to remember her is to continue the fight against corruption and for economic freedom in our lifetime. Mama, some of the Winnie Mandela Support Committee members are here to bid farewell to you. The committee which was formed to support you during Stompy's trial. We take this opportunity to thank these selfless fighters, Comrade Cyril Jantis, Dr. Evin Komo, and Mankomo, of Rimukwena, Rapumulekan, Gwen Ramokopa, Mahomet Danga, Mos Chikani, and our national chairperson, Dalif Bof. Mama, let me tell you that Mama no Ramutodi from Bradford, your star witness in the Stompy case is here, including Stompy's mother is here to bid farewell to the mother of the nation.
As extended,
Mama, I spoke to
not
Stompy's mother, and I
So who
wanted
was
to
it?
convince her to come here. And she said to me, Julius,
so this
Manaka,
of
Mamkatu waka
what do I say?
Ngitotsa mali bona akibathithele because roboloka masi chava. Then I knew that there was never such a story about you and the Stompy family. Mama, Lavo Maile is here. The former president of COSAS who bestowed the honorary president of forces on you when it was not fashionable to do so. The people of Winnie Mandela Squatter camp are also here. They named their place after you when you were still alive. Because they knew your worth. Mama, the leadership of the EFF is here because they proudly associated and unashamedly supported you when you were still alive. Amongst them, Mama, is Dr. Mbuyiseni Nkosi, the PhD graduate, the one who you attended his celebration. You did so, Mama, because you loved education. You wanted the young ones to be educated. Mama, you knew that sustainability of economic freedom is going to rely on education. Equally so, Big Mama, some of those who sold you out to the regime are here.
Tshwane FM 93.6, keeping you on top in Cap City.
Arcadia, True, Sensitivity, Manilo, Malawastan, Nell Mafia, Philip Now, Social Movement, Sunnyside, West Park.
Wrap your ears around Tshwane FM 93.6. Your station, your music.
I don't have anything, I have nothing to offer. I can't build a school. But with this leadership and you, we can realize a dream of changing a life of the hopeless masses of our people. We stayed in a shed. We slept without food. When she came out of a bus, my mother had a scar here. She burned when she was working for whites in the domestic there in town. When she comes out of a bus, I used to run to her because I'd hoped she came back with some leftovers. And the white man wants to tell me how to live my life and tell me that I don't know what poverty does to people. I know what poverty does to people. That's why we must help our people. And we don't care how many people we must help. Whether it's one, whether it's two, I know it's possible we can change their lives. My life to change because someone else said we can change the life of this young man. I went to my township there, said to my principal, I want 3 kids who come from the shacks, and I don't want them to come from proper shacks, the shacks with the proper mazenge. I want the ones that, the rain, when it rains, it goes through. I want them to be pilots. And then we searched for them. The EFF Legacy Project showed you here. We took them to become pilots from shacks. And I said to them, I don't want you to join the EFF or vote for the EFF. If you do that, you can do that on your own. But I want you, when you become pilots, to finance other pilots who come from the same background that you come from. So I don't understand why Vodacom can't build a school. I mean, they are monopolizing the network, the data, Comrade Kiro. I don't understand why MTN can't build a school strictly for the most poor people, for the people that are hopeless, and they were told by their teachers, you are nothing else. You are going to end here. Like those who came before you in your family, you are not going anywhere. This is your end. Those are the people who must go and identify and help. I tell you my history not because I want you to pity me. I don't want any favor from anyone. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. This story I'm telling you is not my story alone. It is our story, all of us in this hall. It's a story of a black child. We've all gone through that. So it shouldn't be easy to align with people who want to destroy a black child if you know where black children come from.
What you listening to? Huh? What you listening to? Huh? What are you listening to?
Tshwane FM, you don't go.
Tshwane FM 93.6. 93.6.
You know, some of the churches, they don't need your qualification. They have nothing to do with your education. Boy, since it was 1909, 1910, long before I was born, Saulo, and then 1916, there 1928, Mandela ba motshware ba boya Saulo ole seala Manibele ke 2015 ba chabale yo bela ba ihama raba Saulo raba
The best Tshwane FM 93.6.
And one thing I've realized, if a Zulu guy has to explain to you, he will make sure that you understand every line. But Umpedi, he wants you to read between.
Call us now, 012-382-4936. That's 012-382-4936.
Zongobela Tulasizwe Ngabokhala Ujehova wako Zongobela Tulasizwe What's your opinion on this?
Oh, the one at Western Cape. I feel like, man, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I saw it and then I laughed. And then what Amicia thing even came to open up those things. Hey. So were they done for COVID-19 or?
Yeah, specifically for COVID-19. Eta? Matiam. Hello? Tiamo.
On Tshwane FM 93.6, Tshwane FM is taking over Pretoria. Tshwane FM 93.6, the future is now.
Angithi, all of you here, you can talk right, Angithi. That's the problem. I don't talk right, I'm well spoken. Angithi nina maniphuma ku-school trip or ku-school outing, benibiza kanjalo nithi school trip or school outing. With us, it was an excursion. And when you guys came back from your school trip or outing, all you someone, no wonder we daily sign about 100 school children died in a bus accident. When we came back from our excursion, what we sang was, thank you, Mr. Bus Driver, bus driver, bus driver. Thank you, Mr. Bus Driver, for the great drive. That was us. And if you guys don't understand, I'll break it down even further.
Hey, are you ready for us?
Okay,
please stay on the line.
Two little birds. That was us. But two little birds. Everyone can sing, but the pronunciation will tell you what kind of a school you went to. Mouse of the two, little. It's not little, it's little.
The best. Tshwane FM 93.6.
What's going on here? What is this? Where am I student? Where am I student?
Njengoba singathembi kahle lokuphepha kwabantwana ukuthi kungcono kuthi la esikoleni sibadala bese wena ufundisa thina siyahamba sifundisa abantwana besemakhaya ngoba nagula thina kunankinga vele sesikhulile kepha bona hayi ngeke kulunga thina
kufanele nibadala for the class angeke nize nive lutho nje umphathi wesikole uvumile ngayo yonke lento le
Fundisa ubutshami buto. Yebo, uqinisile wena kho. Fundisa mlethu ngeke lokuloku sibude imibuto. Sikhathi siyahambe, sifuna kuhamba.
Okay, akunankinga ke. Ngifuna kufundisa bobani? Ndanifundisa. Today's question is based on math literacy. Nyanguva bobani?
Fundisa baba.
Umbuto uthi ikabishi 50 rand. Now uthenga more than 2 yemakabishi bakunika i-discount ya 10 rand. Wena ufuna 5 yemakabishi kumele uphathe malini nayo yothenga emakabishi.
Mothamisi. Uyayazi wena ikabishi ya 50 rand ndoda. Ngathi ngikhulule ngawa simelane nami angikade ngibone. Ikabishi ya 50 rand. Wethishe manje inganani yokabishi ngosiyami ya 50 rand.
Ngishilo ukuthi ngeke nize nivisise lento le. This is just a question bantu abadala man.
Manje ingakanani le kabishi ya 50 rand? Kumbe ngayidla 4 months wonke solingapheli. Mhlawumbe maybe le kabishi it is flagitious, climatic and comparious lamentous.
Hi man, this is just a waste of time, man. This is a waste of time.
ngithenga kuphi cabbage. Cabbage ngithenga kumuntu ngimatiwe. Ngathi kaleya muzi angesizela ngidulise. Hayi 50 rand ngeke teacher.
Hey, this is just a waste of time, man. Ngikhona into leyathiko nini baba? Ikhona into leyathiko nje.
Hayi baba teacher, nawe imibuto yakho ukuthi yami ayihlangani kahle. Ngakho singikho kuphendula.
Usho ukuthi ungabuta ngcono wena ngidlula mina teacher. Ungabuta ngcono wena?
Yebo, singubute mina othiye. Uma ingulube itala abantwana labayithe. Njalo la imithi. Sekuyenteka ukuthi nayo ingulube seyithathe emadodza. Kutawuphela iminyaka enangaki abantwana. Ungabali abataba abashonile. Ya, pendula ndoda, pendula.
Kufanele musivele abantu babethu bafeyile ukuthi bafundisa ngina nakulutho kotishela unganyani uhluleka kuphendula le question ikushaye vegetarian brand motutu nazo
Ayikho yonke le nto. Umhlangano lokuhlalela la eklasini. Ngiyahamba mina.
Hey, uhamba uyaphi? Buya la ingulube ikulenzile.
Yes. Tshwane FM 93.6.
Tshwane FM 93.6. The station that rocks you the most.
Gone 36 minutes after the hour 4 o'clock. Great afternoon. If you just jumped in, and thank you so much for joining us. We are still coming through to you live on Facebook. That's Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. And on YouTube, do check Mokete Radebe. And of course, on other social media pages on Facebook, do check Mokete Radebe. Then that's where we're coming through to you live as well. On Twitter, it's @Tshwane FM. We're also available on the student shop. You can just click in live to listen there. And we're having great discussions. Earlier on, we started up with Dr. Marsha Libambo, looking at challenges faced by learners in rural areas, and also spoke about gender-based violence against women and children, and largely with women being killed of recent. And today I've seen just numerous reports of women being killed. And also we further spoke to our law expert, Mr. Themba Matibe, from the West University, speaking to us about the new, proposed amendment in the constitution that would allow independent candidates to stand in for elections and be independent. And we're now speaking to Matsiamo. Matsiamo is actually an SRC from the Tshwane University of Technology under the banner the Progressive Youth Alliance that consists of the Young Communist League of South Africa, SASCO, and the African National Congress Youth League, right here at TUT Pretoria. And also joined by Mr. Sylvester, well known for his great work in the media space, and a man who has come with many phenomena. One of the most famous one is the Campus Crush, doing quite amazing things on campus. And we'll be discussing about the opportunities, but also the disadvantages that we might be met with regards to these new regulations or proposed changes in the constitutions on elections. Furthermore, we'll look at gender-based violence and also speak about young people and being young on this eve of Youth Day. 38 minutes have gone since 6 o'clock. 012-382-4884. This is where we can talk to us. My name is Mokete Radebe and I'm your host. And I'm with this lovely individuals joining me today. And let's start with Matsiamo, who's joining us on the line. Matsiamo, how are you, my sister?
Good afternoon. I'm well. How are you? Good afternoon as well.
I'm great. Kano Matsiamo Tlharipe, ne?
Yeah.
Matsiamo Tlharipe, yes. Thank you so much. What's your position in SRC?
SRC secretary.
Or secretary?
Yeah.
All right. Sylvester joining us in studio as well. How are you, my brother?
No, I'm good. I'm good, sir.
You're great, ne?
Yeah, lovely to be here.
Yeah, Kana, what's your say?
Hlongwane.
Sylvester Hlongwane. You've once been here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you You always give us great contributions. But we admire the kind of work that you do.
Yeah.
You're keeping the campus abuzz. It's quite amazing. Immediately when they spoke about the independence of electorates, I thought about people like you. This man is going to be the president at the university. I mean, everyone knows him. Matiam, let's start with you. What's your view on this proposed change or amendment in the electoral constitution?
You know, the ruling has challenged democratic institutions to start opening doors for individuals to contest elections. And political structures are no longer seen to be the only entities synonymous with democracy, but with citizens in their own individual and independent rights have the belief and values to contest elections now. But obviously what we got to this, there's a lot of pros and cons that come with what's this? The elections. I'll start.
Matiamo, we seem to be losing you. I'm not sure if the phone is on speaker or Molinkoting, there's challenges on network. Do you want to say hi a bit and move around?
Am I audible now? Is it fine?
You are fine now.
Oh, okay. Like I said, I'll start with the pros.
Yeah.
Because you know, with this whole thing, there are pros and cons that come with it.
Yeah.
Firstly, democracy accommodating every citizen and affording them a chance to stand for elections without conventional processes that have always been followed in the past. That's the first pro, because you know, if it's something that will be new, it's something that will now be introduced into the system. Secondly, we've got a lot of eligible voters that haven't been voting throughout the past years. So maybe this will entice them into voting for candidates of their choice or whoever that any preferred political party that they would want to choose or opt for. And then the freedom of association does not only give rights for association in terms of political parties, but you can also decide to, you can also be yourself with political party, your choice, or any independent candidate.
Interesting.
Then,
yeah, come through.
Looking at the cons, you know, a lot of people have argued to say now a Tshwane from PUT can stand for elections, but that's not really the point, because we'll continue to see, like, this will perpetuate inequality in the society that we live in. As we all know how, like, we live in a very unequal society. For instance, should you take a Mokete to contest, Mokete does not have the financial means to have a proper, like, run a smooth campaign and be good, like, have this massive PR campaign. Mokete does not have the financial means to do so. Hence, I'm saying you will witness people that have money and power still retaining the power or still making it to parliament and the provincial legislature.
42 after 4 o'clock. Now, I just want to jump in as well. Now, in terms of the existence, the operation of, student structures, those who would normally, contest for, the seats in the university. What challenges do you think this might impose on them?
Number one, political structures are going to have to shape up. They're going to come up with strategies that are assisting retaining and maintaining the relevancy within the student populace. I mean, you look at the constitution of PUT. At first, there were no faculty reps. We didn't have any academic sources. But with the amendments that have been made already, that has been passed. So universities and other public institutions will have to follow suit and allow students to independently contest elections. But now, the biggest challenge that we might have to face is the irrelevancy of student formation with regards to that. Like I said, they will have to maintain and retain relevancy within its populace. I mean, you look at people like Sylvester, you said Sylvester has a greater chance of winning. Should he want to contest SLP elections in PUT, he stands a greater chance of winning elections more than someone who could be a candidate of SASCO or EFF, for instance. And looking at most of our historically advantaged universities, they've implemented this strategy. It is nothing new. It was done in Kakis. It was also done in Drake. But the chances of independent candidates winning, they are very slim.
Interesting. Let me just hold it then, come back to Sylvester. Sylvester is joining us in studio. Sylvester, I identified you as a potential independent candidate. I didn't say that's what you want, but looking at that, there's various other candidates that can stand a good chance of representation because of, in as much as we call it student politics, in universities it's largely representatives. I mean, there's people that are doing quite well in sports. I mean, we've got the likes of Caster Semenya at TUT now, who are students. We've got people like Stephen Mukoka at TUT who are students. We've got other players that are playing in the PSL who are within sports. We've got other people that are in various spaces. We've got other students that are radio presenters. Just highlighting that element, leadership and popularity. Do you foresee a different approach in terms of leadership? In terms of leadership choices for students, but also, do you think this could increase voter turnout?
Well, firstly, as Tiamo alluded, that this thing is not the first thing happening in universities. You look at Tax. I know a guy who was running last year. And because of he's popular within the university and he's got friends that are popular. He actually made it, to be part of the SRC in the university. So I think it's going to change the dynamics of politics within our university, especially student politics, because, for instance, we have structures that do cadre deployment. As long as we're now, Mokete, you stand a great chance to be deployed, to go to SRC, instead of someone who's got the capability of being a leader and leading the constituencies, So it's about, no, Sylvester, we know him, he knows Mokete, then Sylvester has a great chance of being part of, or Sylvester can be managed by the who and who. So it's safe for him to be part of the thingy. So I'm saying to you that this legislature, I'm sure in TUT, I hope and I wish that they get to implement it, that independent candidates can stand a chance to, be part of the politics. And what it's going to do is that it's going to get this political structure, student structure, standing on their toes, because these guys of people are socialites, are likely to be socialites, to just, I know Sylvester can help me with my campaign. Even Jonas wrote the status saying, you have Sfundo, who is a guerrilla, who knows, who's got a great mind in politics, and you have Sylvester, who is popular by doing the Fakwabadi, the event there, students are gonna vote for who they like, and then I mean, if you give them nice time, students like nice time. And another thing is that what happens is that we vote for these people. We'd vote for SASCO wins or vote for EFF wins, but at the end of the day, during the manifestos, they'll promise us things. No. And then at the end of the day, we don't know who to go to say, but Chief, you said you're going to make this thing. Why?
Because you voted for a party,
exactly,
not a person.
Not a person. So if you vote for a person, you are able to come to me and say, but Vesta, you said you are going to do this. Please do it. Then Sylvester can stand and say, Ish, comrades, I'm sorry, I could not do this because of that. So we have a person who we can complain to, rather than having to go to different people who don't even have an idea of what the politics are.
Let me come to Matiam. Matiam, Sylvester is raising a valid point as well. But let me come back to you. You are in SRC now, right? Now, I want us to also assess capability or capacity to lead. I think the dynamics on student leadership or student representatives in universities is quite broad, and it demands quite a lot of time as well. Let's speak about the dynamic comprehension of policies in student governance, for instance, issues around finances, issues around residence policies, issues around exclusion, issues about registration, issues because of, as a student you sit in council as well, where you're forced to comprehend the necessities of what it takes to employ a vice chancellor or an executive management, so to say. Now, it's a good opportunity for the independent candidates, but do you see an independent candidate who, is just a popular guy who, is a socialite, being able to manage all those politics around that? Let me start with you, Matiam.
Mokete, it's a very complex issue. I'll start with, when you're in SLC, or should you decide to be a student leader, you need to be socially conscious. You need to read, and you need to equip yourself with the necessary knowledge. You need to go through policies and understand the laws and the legislator, and understand everything that would be necessary for you. Because when you are in this position, you're dealing with a professor. You need to argue to a level of a professor. You must be able to influence that person, and you need to be conscious of student issues, because it's not only about being a socialite. You need to balance the two, in a sense where you become a socialite where you can resonate with the students, because people argued back in the days to say the campaigns that we have on campus do not speak to middle class students, or do not speak to 2000s. There was an argument about it. So we had to come up with tactics and solutions as to how we'll combat that. How are we going to become relevant as an organization to these young kids that are coming up? Because with them, unfortunately, you cannot use what was used back then. The strategies they can't be the same. You need to resonate with them. But at the same time, you need to be a very knowledgeable person in terms of
There we go again. Matiamo?
I'm sorry. A lot of people don't understand that. And you need to be competent to hold office.
No. Sylvester is raising another important point around accountability, that when they vote for a structure, the structure will deploy whoever appears favorable in their eyes at that time, irrespective of whether the students who voted for the organization are not necessarily in love with the character that is going to be chosen by the organization. And he further says that maybe this will also give an opportunity for students to specifically vote for a human being other than a structure. I want to get your opinion on that. But furthermore, I want to get your opinion on another issue, and I think I raised it earlier on with the latter speaker, on the issues around factions within organizations. What do you think this will do in the provocation of factions within the student structures?
Okay. Look at it. Traditional organizations have constitutions, right?
Yeah.
And as an employee of a certain organization, you're expected to follow suit. You're expected to follow that constitution. You're expected to follow the regulations that are given to you. So what happens is, usually in our gatherings and in our formations, we've got PDMs and ATMs, and students are invited into those discussion panels where they can come in and raise their concerns. So, like I said, we are guided by, as an organization, we are guided by the Constitution, which we barely depend on. So, as a member of SASCO, there are certain qualities that you should have. There are certain qualities that you should portray to your masses. So, what happens is students are always free to write complaints to our branch leadership, and if they are not happy with whatever the SRCs are doing. And then with regards to factions, I personally, I'm not a factionalist. I hate factions because they rob us of they rob us of quality. We'll find ourselves, because you are not supporting a certain faction, you will not make it, knowing very well that Sylvester is deserving to be in the SRC. So what needs to happen is we need to dismantle factions within our student formations, especially in our institution. I mean, we come from a very, very highly politicized institution where everything is just based on who's supporting who or who's on whose call. So we need to dismantle that and focus on the core issues of students, because even with factions, you find a position where you've got a Sylvester that is in council, but Sylvester is pushing his own agendas. He's overlooking everything that he was deployed for.
Interesting. It's 54. minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm going to open the calls, but for now, we're still continuing on this lovely discussion. So long, send us a voice note on 0825385810. I'm checking some of those voice notes there, and you can just hit us up also on Facebook. It is Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. Just after 5 o'clock on 0123824884. I'll be checking your calls on either of the matters that we're discussing today for you to weigh in. Let me go back to you, Sylvester.
Yes.
The issue of capacity and capability, and also accountability in terms of now Sylvester, we've placed him there, he becomes untouchable. Let's address that. Is it issues that worry you with regards to the new proposed amendments?
Well, I wouldn't say they worry me. I'm saying that with the amendments that are made by Concord, right?
Yeah.
They speak to us, the masses, that always were looking for answers, but we never got the answers from the people that we deploy, to represent us. I mean, I remember when I joined politics, I was part of RSM, and we deployed one cadre.
Yeah.
And after deploying the cadre went to do his own things, and we had to recall because, I mean, the cadre didn't represent our interest, because he got Mokota and all that. That's what happens in the university.
Okay, so you had proof of this? That you got Mokota and not?
Well, I wouldn't say I have, but we know the dynamics and the politics of the university. Okay. It's about what I make, give service provider and whatnot, but that's fine. That's a discussion for another day.
I think
what I'm saying is that if Sylvester is deployed
to
be in the SRC or a PG, right?
Yeah.
I sit in council.
Yeah.
If there is anything that happens, I mean, for instance, what's happening right now is these things of laptops. I see Andile was being told things on Facebook when he released the statement that no laptops will come. I don't know when our laptops. Students are angry because they want their laptops.
Yeah.
But now, what if that is not Andile's problem? Or when Andile is just, So if we know that Andile is the only one that represents himself, there's no way that Andile can say, no, Kedas is not me. No. So he's going to be accountable. But again, for us to choose whether this person is the right person, for us to vote for that independent candidate, it's not, I don't think it's about having the qualities of leadership. It's about understanding the dynamics of student needs. As long as you know that, okay, students must have Wi-Fi in engineering, that you go and represent them. So you know politics, you read books, those things, they enhance the mind. I understand, and a greater chance of understanding things. But the whole thing of you being a leader is to represent us as students. You must go when we say, Chief, we want the freshers to be free. You must go and say, comrades, MC, what, Vice Chancellor, student want free. Now you understand that no, you must massage. That's where the problem comes, because you think you are ahead of us as students. Once we deploy you, you run and you do your own things. And when we want you, you're nowhere to be found.
I'm glad you brought that discussion, and we're going to move not so long, Tiamo, because I want us to exhaust this discussion and move to gender-based violence quickly. But before we do that, do you think students comprehend the role of student representatives and the limit to their capabilities in that position? Tiamo, have you ever felt as an SRC that sometimes students are asking too much from you? They're asking something that is not within your capabilities.
No, not really.
All right.
Because like Sylvester did, what happens in our manifestos is that students are promised the world.
Yeah.
Companies are hardly ever realistic with students. So I wouldn't really say I've been in a position where I felt like students were asking for the most.
Yeah. I like the example that Sylvester just made now. If refreshers, for instance. I mean, I think also the issue around laptops, and I think it's a very interesting discussion as well. And I saw how the trends were on Twitter as well. And my immediate question was, when students were comparing TUT with your VETs and other universities, rightfully so because it's an institution of higher learning, in their approach, were they realistic and were they fair to the capacity that TUT has? I mean, for instance, there's a call now at Tiamo and Sylvester that students must come back. And after the minister's visit, it appeared that unlike other universities, TUT's finalist students are 36%, not 33%, which posed a danger to TUT. Looking at the fact that infrastructurally, TUT it's one of the institutions that were inherited, as disadvantaged during apartheid, right? How do you deal with those issues? I mean, for instance, TUT has over 4,000 students. WITS doesn't even have half of that. You get the point. But furthermore, 90% of students at TUT well, they should be on NFSAS. So it means that I think around 50 is NFSAS and 40% are the missing middle. So it's students that do not have the capabilities. Now, my question immediately is, do you think at times the students are quite aware of the dynamics of the university that they are in and what it can do and what it can't do? Furthermore, the SRC is leading them on whether what they can do or what they can't do. For instance, for instance, the issue of laptops, on whether does TUT have the money to buy laptops? Is it a reasonable request? And it's also just looking at how with VETS. For instance, if you look at the registration fee, Yako VETS, and looking at Yako TUT, it's two different things. If you look at the sponsorship that comes into VETS and the sponsorship that comes into TUT, VETS had Best VETS, part of their sponsorships. So I'm just looking at, in terms of the capabilities, the qualities that are needed from this SRC member. As an SRC member, do you ever take time to say, actually, you know what, Mokete, as a person that you've entrusted me to lead you, how you want a private car that is going to drive you from class or that is going to drive you from your private residence to class, and whatnot. That request is unrealistic. It's not a bad one, but it's unrealistic to the environment that we're in. Do you guys ever have those discussions?
Mokete, we try our own to let our students know of the systematic differences that we have and that exist within our within the sector, the higher education sector. We try so hard to explain to our students again that we are historically disadvantaged institution that highly depends on the state in terms of the resources, and we are highly subsidized by the state. So it is our responsibility also to ensure that we inform the students, we tell them on a day-to-day basis that some people need to meet the university halfway in some instances. But as student leaders, we never advocate for that. In a way, we find ourselves contradicting ourselves in I don't know if it's because we want quick wins or we also aren't able to comprehend with whatever is going on within the university, or it's because we know that the university has means of providing certain things. I'm still trying to figure out that as a student leader, because it is a very complex issue, honestly.
Interesting. Sylvester, do you want to weigh in on that one before we quickly jump to gender-based violence?
Yeah, look, I think first thing first, regarding laptops, the problem was the minister, how he announced that students will receive laptops.
Okay.
He didn't say that universities will have to buy laptops for students. He said NFSA students will be provided laptops. You know? So in other ways, it felt, or it sounded like it was him. It was from his department that will provide laptops. But also, I think the important part of I was once I had friends in UP. So one friend of mine had these cards. These cards were just nice. And then I was like, dude, what are these cards for? And when I took them out, I realized that these things are talking about the history of the university, of tax. That's when you speak about understanding, student understanding what happens in the university. It comes with that. Because first thing first, students don't care about politics of the university. Unless you are within the perimeters of politics, you'll now understand the dynamics of Maratiti doesn't have money, they are outsourced there. So I think as much as we want students to know, we as people who are within the university, we must start and create such things that will enable students to understand. Or no, TUT was inherited from apartheid. There are 23,000 students in the residence. TUT gets, we have students like this. Now they get to understand, hey, Musveta has 30,000 students, TUT has 60,000. They don't have the capacity to be able to, And I during the lockdowns, I started that, but I couldn't get more information about the university. I just, used Photoshop. and started talking about the history of TUT. And people were saying, "Oh my, I didn't know about this. Wow, this is nice."
So that's lack of adequate information in terms of, I'm beginning to ask you to think on whether do we even have enough information on some of these things. Yeah.
I'm sorry to come in. There's one thing that I'm forgetting to add here.
Yeah, come in, bring it.
The issue of institutional privilege.
Yeah.
In a sense where, for instance, if you were to take a student from TUT and a student from FIRST, they would stand a greater chance of being chosen and whatever because of institutional privilege. Like, somehow we should never at any given point forget about institutional privilege.
Yeah.
What it does in the sector, Salus and all these other political formations have been crying and pleading with the minister to say, can we have a single coordinated sector where everything is done on a basis where all universities are doing the same thing,
Yeah. But maybe just to come in there, I think the trend has always been, and I think with my little knowledge in terms of how some institutions are able to attract funds, if you look at the image of Wits, for instance, they are regarded as the best university when it comes to law. They're one of the oldest universities in the country, and they've got more donors than, for instance, universities like TUT. For instance, if you think about TUT and just being factual and honest about it, the first thing that comes in mind, apart from the football and sports that is doing well, it's really strikes. And I think also it speaks to the behavior and the character of TUT students to say at what point are TUT students, and by TUT students, unfortunately, we mean SRCs, because of if students have entrusted you with the responsibility of leading them, the thinking is that you guys have influence on them. So the question would be that you as SRCs and maybe as independent candidates come in, have you ever thought, of the ways in which you can rebrand, the character of what it means to be a TUT student? Because the reality is the majority of people at TUT that are employed, they are employed. But the graduates, which are the products that comes out of TUT, do not necessarily going to stand a chance in society because of the stigma attached to them, their character. Okay, but these ones, the only way they address issues is through strikes, and it is not management that strikes. They may be part of the problem on why you guys are striking, but the manner in which you do it is what is important. Vets has done it all the time. They ban, but they've always positioned themselves in a way that will always, put them ahead of others. I mean, you should see how I was speaking to a Vets graduate just now. He's a law graduate, a SASCO member as well, and the manner in which he promotes Vets on Facebook, you'd swear that Vets pays him. But I mean, with TUT students, how often do you guys go on social media and say, in actual fact, I'm from the People's University, and there's no one that is going to tell us about A, B, C, D. If I've got this qualification from TUT, I'm the best. So it's also those things that I've picked up, that it seems as if students from this university, in as much as it is poor, they've also adopted the poor mindset and accepted that we are poor, we are burning, and that's what we are. I don't know. Do you get my point?
I get you. I get you. But,
I think.
One thing.
Yeah.
I'm condoning strikes or anything.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why we involved in TUT is because of the system. People don't just strike because they are bored. And I always tell people that, and including the media, there was a time when we had a protest, and I said to one of the journalists, I wish you would understand the complexities that we face as TUT students, And it's not because we want to close the gates. I, for one, personally, as an SRC member, I don't believe in protest. I believe that we must be able to sit down together and reach a certain consensus,
I hear you. Let me just chop you there and allow Sylvester to come in. I want us to quickly move to gender-based violence because of time. Sylvester, you're coming in?
Yeah, no, look, with what you just said, I think it's not even about TUT being unprivileged or anything.
Yeah.
It's about supporting your own. I mean, there is one artist, an art graduate, who is in TV now, doing very well.
Yeah.
I won't mention the name, but I listened to him being introduced on radio. He was in radio, and was introduced as a VETS graduate. And he's a TUT graduate, but he didn't even fight for it because of the stigma attached to that. And you look at TUT. I mean, if tax, there's someone who's doing good out there as a a celebrity or something, they will promote that person to show that this is our person. But TUT, should I say, maybe the corporate and marketing sector of it likes that thing of identifying, and that speaks to you, Mokete. Identifying the people that could raise. I mean, if you're a learner from Limpopo, you're told about TUT, you're thinking strike, but there is greater chances of people in TUT that are doing very well, especially in media. You find TUT students are the one leading. But how do we promote and protect and preserve and show the world that these people are coming from TUT? We don't do that. All we care about is when they come to say, there's a speaker, there's what they need a speaker. Now they're looking, hey man, this person, let's take this person. But we need to, on a daily basis, use social media because that's where all of us are. Use social media to promote these people and show the world that, look, we are TUT. Yes, we are people of strikes, but we are proud that we produce people like this. These are the people, So as soon as we start supporting our own, I'm telling you, TUT stigma of strikes is not going to be even considered,
But I think the other thing, and I want to chop it because of time, it's whether or not our people, even willing to be, associated with us. Because that's another issue that we've tend to actually find out is that quite a lot of alumni do not want to be associated with us because of, the things that are happening. But it's a discussion for another day. I want us, because of time, to quickly exhaust this one and jump into gender-based violence. Tiamo, let's jump into that one. I know it's quite close to your heart, and I would want us to quickly go through it. We've seen the scourge, right? And we know that it happens in universities as well. What are the dynamics? How are you guys dealing with it as student leaders in universities?
Okay. There was a year, it was 2018, there was a student structure that submitted a memorandum to the institution with regards to rape culture in institutions of higher learning. We gave the university, we told the universities as to what is it that needs to be done, like a policy on gender-based violence. We need to have one. Even this year, I've been advocating for that, saying that we need to have a policy on gender-based violence, especially understanding that this thing does not only happen within our community. What they say as with regards to universities about universities being microcosms of society, as in what happens in society will happen in institutions of higher learning. So we had asked that a total number of FDSP is it's implemented. With regards to the policy that will be introduced, they get they introduce laws that will not protect the perpetrators, because in most cases, most of these people get to come out because of what happened, because of how the perpetrator is protected. We had asked for a 24-hour clinic service just in case that there is a rape case or there is a case of gender-based violence. Those students are able to go there. There was also a patrolling of securities around campus, within campus and residences, even those residences outside. And another thing that was of paramount importance was the issue of having a unit within our residences where these students can go. It's quite hard as a woman staying in a residence that is managed by a male for me to go and report the case. So should we have units within our residences that are managed by either social workers or health practitioners, then these students, should they be in a case, they're able to go into those units in the residences and then, they're able to give assistance.
I think you're touching more on the responsive mechanisms around that. But let me just ask you this one, and I'm going to let you go. In terms of dealing with the cause of gender-based violence, and I'm told it happens quite a lot amongst the residents' relationships. In terms of dealing with the cause, what are some of the interventions that you think universities need to adopt to bring about awareness with relationships? I remember just not at TUT, but in other institutions, we found where girls were killed by their partners as well. How do you think we should bring a more long-term, sustainable, preventative method in campus relationships?
Like I said before, we need to first start with a toll-free number before anything. A toll-free number that students will call should they be in emergency.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there's again move to emergency units that these students will quickly, like it's an emergency evacuation unit that these students will run to should there be a need for them to report these cases.
Interesting. I hear you. 14 minutes after 5. It's the Buckle Up Radio on Tshwane FM 93.6. We're just a few hours before Youth Day. Mokete Radebe, she's the SRC Secretary of the Tshwane University of Technology's Pretoria campus, and she's speaking to us at this point in time. Mokete, I'm letting you go. Thank you so much for joining us. She disconnected before we can disconnect her. I'm going to come back to you with the issue of gender-based violence. Yeah. But before that, I want to take a quick break and bring one gentleman who's going to talk to us about an event happening at TUT tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's take a quick break quickly and get him on the line.
Okay.
You know, some of the judges, they don't need your qualification. They have nothing to do with your education, Bujish. Boy, since it was 1909, 1910, long before I was born, Saulo, 1916,
Hey, Mokete. Are you ready for us?
1928.
He's still on the line.
I want to listen to the group.
Plus, we're going to be live. I think they're going to be live just like us.
Oh, yeah.
Who's a good speaker?
Yeah.
Tshwane FM 93.6.
It's just 16 minutes after 5 o'clock, and we're still continuing the discussion. And earlier on, as I was speaking to Matsiamo and Sylvester's still with us. And before we get into our discussion on gender-based violence, Sylvester, and especially from a male's point of view, I want us to quickly jump to Nhlawulo, who's joining us on the line. Nhlawulo is an editor of Bua Campus student paper, and he's also a radio presenter on Tshwane FM. I don't know what his radio name, but I know that he speaks Tsonga. He's the only guy that speaks Tsonga on air. I don't know who told him that it's sexy, but yeah, we're having him on the line. Nhlawulo, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon to you. How are you?
I'm great, my brother. Kuposka bua Tsonga ne? Uska bula bula. Uska.
Like not like I need to teach them, this Tonga language as well.
Let's speak about tomorrow. There's a virtual Youth Day event that is coming through. Interesting stuff. Tell us about it.
Well, tomorrow is a great day to the youth of South Africa and to TUT students as well. We are hosting a visual Youth Day celebration. This is actually the first of meaning that it's something that has never been done before. This pandemic has caused us to do a lot of things and to actually look into other things that we are able to do. And then here we are. Tomorrow is a great day. We'll be hosting DJ Boo, Linda Dooley, and Gugule Sikala. He's the LDRD director. So, tomorrow is a great day.
At what time is it happening?
So, the event is taking place at 12 o'clock. So that's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. It will be hosted via the TUT Facebook page, the official TUT Facebook page, and the Bua newspaper Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, or if you're not yet on Facebook, I think it's time to activate that Facebook account because you don't want to miss out on this one.
Awesomeness. And I'm told also it will be live on Tshwane FM 93.6, so make sure that you don't miss it. An interesting one. Nhlawulo, thank you so much. Is it for free?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Anyone, you can, one thing that I would encourage people to do as well is to also share it. When you see the link, when you see the live stream, just share the link. Just share the link with some of the people that may not be TET students as well, because this event should benefit all the youth in South Africa.
Yeah.
So that's the significance of the event, to benefit everyone. All the youth people have to benefit from this.
It's Youth Day tomorrow. Your message to young people listening now?
What I can say to young people, you need to stand up, rise up, and look into certain things that you need to do. This pandemic, most of the people that are actually at home, this is actually a great time for you to stand up, or to even sit down and think of the things that you need to do in order to get somewhere in life. Whether it be business, investment, or just looking into your career, how far can you take it? What is it that you need to do to actually go further and to actually explore some of the things in your life that can actually take you somewhere in life, instead of just sitting and saying, no, we should wait until this thing goes over. That's when my business is going to start. You need to start now during this pandemic. When it's hard, this is the time to start.
Interesting. Saulo, thank you so much, and a great afternoon to you, my brother.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity as well. As I say, tomorrow, let's get it together and let's meet up and let's do the thing online.
Awesomeness. It's 20 minutes after 5 o'clock. In 10 minutes, we'll be joined by Professor Berihanyan, all the way from Northwest University, also to speak to us on these issues. Gender-based violence, Sylvester, what do you think is the problem?
What I was taught is that for you to solve something, you must understand why.
Okay.
You must get the roots of the problem before you can even attempt to solve. Because without understanding the history, it's gonna be a problem to solve it.
Yeah.
I say as the problem here, what I think, and it's my opinion, and I must not be patronized for that.
Okay.
Is that, and we are, as guys, we are entitled.
Okay.
We think having to date Sbongile, it means that I control a life. I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day when it was happening of Tilfatopule.
Yeah. Oh, you have a girlfriend? Yes. Okay.
Oh, yes. Please, I do. So I was asking her, what do you think is a problem? And she was like, you know what? I think this thing of guys thinking they own us, because in most cases you'd find that it occurs when someone has cheated, or this girl doesn't want this guy anymore. It feels like, I know I've been with you forever. Now they end up killing the women, and beating them and all that. But I'm saying to you, Mokete, is that when you enter into a relationship as a guy, don't think you own the lady.
Yeah.
You are there to enjoy. You are there to grow. And then luckily, if you guys grow and become happy and have a family, your responsibility as a guy is to provide, protect, and preserve anything that has to harm the woman.
But what do you think has led to us thinking that we have this sense of entitlement over women?
How you were raised is important, that plays a very important role, actually. If you are raised by a woman, you'll understand how significant a woman is in a person's life. So how you were raised also, sometimes guys, we are raised to be tough. Yeah, I'm tough. No, I won't be disrespected by what. I was also at my sister during lockdown, and when my sister would speak to the husband and say, no, this is wrong, we must not do that, and she would feel like, the husband would feel like, no. As a woman, you must not do that. And I felt like, nah, man, this thing should be mutualistic, man. You must flow. Relationships are supposed to flow. Or no, let's do this, let's do that. So I think having to, and also not being in a relationship as a guy, you end up feeling like this is the only one. Guys, there are a lot. If she did something to you, just walk away. You are helping yourself. You are also helping the kids to come, the generation to come. Because as soon as I see that my brother can beat his woman, I start to feel like that's how you discipline a woman. And then and also other women, they feel like if you're not beating her or abusing her, you don't love her. I once had a case like that, and I was like, that's so crazy. So as soon as we realize that these women are people like us as men, they're not entitled to anything. If she wants to leave, allow her to leave with open hands. Even having to give her a kissing and goodbye. But having to, I know it's not easy, but having to kill, man, that's painful. I was so shocked when I heard the story of Teofato. And I mean, these things once they happen. And then one thing, Mokete, that I even shared, I think, on my WhatsApp is that right now we are busy. Hey, stop gender-based violence. But after 2 weeks, what's going to happen? We stop. It was Karabo. It was Uinene. We were all on social media fighting, crying. Yeah. But what happened? Until Tofato. Look what's happening in the United States. Black Lives Matter. George Floyd. Those guys don't play.
Yeah.
They stood as a country, stopped everything to say this thing must end. What is our government doing? I mean, I rape a woman, I kill her, then I go to jail. I will stay there. I have food. I have hot water. I have a bed. These people know death penalty must be reintroduced, because once you start thinking of beating someone, you'll think, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my life, But also, during this issue of GBV, we must look at the people that would frame you and say, no, this one, Sylvester, I don't like him.
Because I wanted to get into that to say, but what happens if I was wrongly accused? Because sometimes people, the ladies as well, how much they feel disappointed as well. The same way that men feel disappointed. Because some men, but the reason they feel is that they're disappointed, and some women as well about to let go.
Sure.
That's why sometimes they would use mwana to try and punish you, or they would just trace your name or say you've raped them as mechanisms of dealing with that hate. So how do we then manage that part if you are wrongfully accused?
I think what's important is we must establish an independent institution that deals with those things. Because if you go to court, it's another thing. I mean, if I remember one time, one friend, I got a call from a friend that says, yo, we haven't seen this girl for past 24 hours. What's happening? I literally had to go, and we had to go find out where she was. Luckily she was safe. But having to go to the police and saying, no, look, what Dr. Ndlozi was saying on the funeral of Tsofat is true. They'll tell you, no, wait for 24 hours. What if that person not a boyfriend? That's how they react to us. So I say we must establish an independent institution that deals with GBV. That when Sylvester comes and say, when Mang Lerato says Sylvester raped me, then an investigation that is special, that is open to deal with specifically that. Ukraine police are dealing 10 cases. How that person, work around having to deal with many cases. But we have an independent institution that stands alone, that deals with that, and I say we can fight it.
Interesting. Hold that thought there. We take a quick break with this one. It's one song by Speed titled Amasiko. When we come back, we're joined by the professor.
Tshwane FM 93.6 Cap City's #1 radio station.
Professor, are you ready for us? Yes, Bob? Okay, please stay on the line.
Next time on Nurnal Mat. Yeah. Oh, something in writing.
What's up?
Yeah. Advert. Recycle like finally kayo na so ko panalo ka. Alright. Invite DJ sa live show ko sa. Kamera kaya ka mo kaya. Yeah. Isa. Kung nyo tayo din na yon. Yeah. Okay. Alright. Marami very nice pan pala ko na ko. Ano? Sure.
I keep hearing it outside, so I'll just leave it to you.
Sure.
I guess I'm going to be
yeah. COVID-19, yes. That's a good thing.
Good. Stepped a lot of things.
But it's another thing. Nobody cares.
And that's the danger of it. That's the danger of it.
La posibu yakona elokshini impilo zethu sitshentshile namasiko wethu sesiyawakhohlwa.
Speed on this one, the song is titled Amasiko, and but singakhohlwa la sibuya khona election njengoba impilo sezitshentshile sibuza indlela kwabaphambili. And on the line we're joined by Professor Berihanyane. When we are listening to this song, sibuza indlela kuyi Professor Berihanyane, the former generation, the former, the current, and the future. Prof, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Tata Radebe. Good evening to your listeners.
Wamuhubula maramfano Prof Mare, apere towel, orada towel mfano. Got it straight back.
It's nostalgic. It's evolutionary, but yet it still makes sense today.
Amazing talent, I must say. 31 minutes after 5, Professor Berihanyane, all the way from the Northwest University. We are discussing just a number of things. Now, Concord ruling with regards to independence of candidates. What do you make of that? And also, what impact do you think it will have on institutions of higher learning?
Well, it's long overdue. And let's remind our listeners that from a political perspective, just after the demise of CODESA 1 and 2, respectively, we had that session, multi-party talks, where we singled out a number of interests. It was quite interesting on hindsight today when you look back at that experience, that you start to realize how important it was and how representative it almost became. Because out of the whole project came a voice that represented the constitutional architects at that time, who saw it fit that at some stage in our lives, we need to create a space from which we need to accommodate for electoral reforms. Fast-track that somewhere between 2000 and 2003. There was the released report, the Van Zyl-Slabeck report, that spoke to the electoral reforms itself. And of course, the need to drive ourselves towards some measure of beefing up provisions of the electoral systems to be more accommodative of accountability, of transparency, and of course, true representation, not only based by process proportional representation, and there's a coin that they use as well, first past the post system. But creating more room for innovation and creativity. And here we are, 2020. The room is there, the appetite, thanks to civil society, your so-called third state that had to ensure that some kind of a direction is established here, and the Concord, despite the difference between the minority and the majority judgments, so it fits to pass a verdict in favor of changing the status quo.
But those who master the skills of conspiracy have already started saying that, in actual fact, your homeboy and his, brothers-in-law are trying to make sure that he remains the president forever, or that his rich friends, Petis Motsepe, might actually come and lead after him.
What about the allegiance within the ANC? What about the allegiance within the tripartite alliance? This will be tested. People are, when I say people, I mean your rank and file, all these years were quick to say, I was born in the ANC. And if the ANC is a point of reference, let's use that as an example. I was born in the ANC. My blood is the ANC colors. That allegiance will now be subjected to a serious stress test, if you want to call it that way. But again, let's not fool ourselves. Running a campaign as an independent is a burden. You need physical material. You need financial muscles. You need your Radebes of this world who will become spin doctors overnight and run the campaign on behalf of the independent candidate in a manner that attracts voter attention and support in the ballot box. It's huge. But then maybe you have a point. Those who have muscles may be seen as creating a platform for renting purposes, or what other people would call sponsorship purposes, by sponsoring a candidate in return for certain favors in the long run. It could be opportunities in government business. It could be opportunities elsewhere that require government protection and some form of guarantee. So slowly, I think we will be driving our system, our polity, into the American style of system where money, plumb, celebrity involvement, the Radebes of this world, in the forefront of communication strategies, of ensuring that certain campaigns are in the forefront of getting support, as I said earlier. So it's a huge reform, demanding, but at the same time, a lot of questions must be asked as we move forward.
Universities, how will it affect student politics?
Huge. I think you and me, and perhaps the larger portion of your listener constituency, will agree that the university is a future hub for socialization. It has always been to a certain degree in terms of political consciousness. You go back to the 70s, you go back to our days in 1990 going forward. And prior to that, in the 80s, universities such as the now defunct Vista University, your TSA, now the new UNISA hub, these were seen, your Fort Hairs, having produced leaders such as Mugabe, Mandela, and others, and continuing in that stream through distance learning as in UNISA. All of that energy needs to be repackaged, one would sense. How that happens? We're living in the fourth industrial revolution. Technology is critical. Here we are. We're seeing webinars, we're seeing workshops being discussed through your Zoom, through your Facebook chats. That appetite needs to be taken to a higher level. What concerns me the most is that the appetite to read, the appetite to be critical of our politics, somewhat has lost direction. Whether this direction will be reclaimed, I would want to wait to see. Be part of the interest party that would want to measure the same as we move forward.
Interesting. I want us to quickly jump into gender-based violence. It has found its way back into our discussion.
It would come back. It would come back. Remember, we in the last almost 70 days plus.
Yeah.
We were living on borrowed time, really. And science. When I say science, I'm leaning closer towards the social sciences. Would argue very strongly here that there exists a body of knowledge that tells us that exposure to all forms of abuses in terms of substances, including alcohol, by the way, has indeed opened both the back and the front door for somatic behavior, which leads to domestic violence, now femicide. And of course, we're seeing a rise in patients being admitted in emergency wards in hospitals, which then puts further strain in our health system in terms of offering space and resources to otherwise COVID-19 patients. This is unfortunate. It's unfortunate at a time when policy alone cannot be used as a yardstick to discourage the scourge of social violence in this country. We need to do more. It doesn't lie only in education. Churches must come on board. We've said this before. Societies, communities, ordinary household units. We need to sit back and teach our boys how to conduct themselves. And of course, notwithstanding the fact that we need to empower our girls to be somewhat enjoying equal footing in terms of recognition and observing their rights as equal members of our society.
Interesting. 41 after 5 o'clock, Professor Berihanyane speaking to us. Prof, it's Youth Day tomorrow. Your message to young people?
Let's not forget the dreams that the generation of 1976, the generation of 1985, I've got to emphasize this. That second wave that almost became recognized but failed because of various reasons was a way to resuscitate the spirit of 76. We dare not betray the dream that was given to us. We dare not walk on top of tombs and graveyards that lie out there, bloodshed on behalf of all mankind, of all South Africans today who now enjoy this freedom. Forward we go. Let's not defer the dream that was once put on the table.
Prof, thank you so much. A very befitting statement there to kickstart our Youth Day event tomorrow. Thank you so much and have a great one, sir.
Splendid one to your listeners.
Yeah, go to get statement. It's a presidential candidate.
I didn't hear
that. Thank you so much, Prof. It's 42 minutes after 5. Professor Berihanyane is speaking to us on that one. Sylvester, I'm going to come back to you as we wrap it up.
Yes.
It's Youth Day tomorrow. Your closing argument for young people that are listening now.
I'm going to say young people must wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they must wake up. This entitlement of waiting for things to be created for them. Opportunities, you create them for yourself.
Yeah.
If you want something, you go for it. Don't wait on someone, your mother, your family, your brother, your sister. Go do it. Stand up, wake up. The economy is running. It's waiting for young people to jump in it.
Yes.
And if we are not going to jump in it, then people that we always complain about that they are eating our money, they'll always eat it because we are not there to give them a competition. And as young as we are, we are the greater minds. We are the ones that are going to lead in the future. But it starts now. I mean, even Prof was saying that for you to be president, if you're an independent candidate, you will need money, you'll need infrastructure, you'll need resource.
Yeah.
You start now to capture that resource that in 10 years, 20 years time, you can even run yourself and be a president, So we, as young people, must wake up. We are tired. We've been sleeping, but we need to wake up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
43 after 5 o'clock. Want to take one song. It's a struggle song. This one is titled Solomon. If you're in universities, you'd know it. It's 5-2 before we give you great music. all the way, just making way for the nighttime team. But it's Cape City Nights coming through all the way till midnight.
Are we done?
Yeah, we just ready. Okay. Just want to say my goodbyes and then. It's fine. So the night, because I just came working from 2021. Okay.
Yeah, I can tell, eh? So other presenters are not coming in.
We're doing this
so midnight, and there's another tip after 12.
It goes all the way back. During this period of infrastructure,
I want to take over tomorrow. One day.
It's possible. It was started by students in social.
One day. I must talk to my forces.
Yeah. This is the famous Solomon Mahlangu song as we prepare you for Youth Day coming tomorrow. We remember the fallen heroes. We remember those that came before us. We remember those who paved the way for us. Those whose blood, was used to nourish the trees that were to bear the fruits for the freedom that we are celebrating today. I think that's one of the statements that would resonate with the late Solomon Mahlangu, a man from Mamelodi. But furthermore, Tshwane FM presents the June 16 Youth Day special. Now, every year in June 16, we as South Africans celebrate Youth Day, which honors and pays tribute to the memory of the brave school children who lost their lives while protesting. While protesting against laws that made Afrikaans compulsory in black township schools throughout the country. Now, in previous years, we were able to celebrate as a nation by wearing our school uniform attires and have joyful marches and social gatherings with our friends and family. But this year, we have decided to spend this day a little bit differently by bringing Tshwane FM's favorite DJs live to your studios from AM to PM. You can also catch the shows live on our Facebook page. That is Tshwane FM, Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. Remember, the hashtag is stay home, stay safe while you are tuning in. Tshwane FM 93.6 through our Ruby P, giving you a banger of DJs that are coming through. It's 10 minutes before 6 o'clock. We're going to end it this way as we give you great music. The nighttime team is coming through. Thank you so much for a listening pleasure. I'm not in tomorrow. I'll also be dancing with other young people to the Tshwane FM virtual lockdown DJ party DJ that it's happening. But I'll be back with you guys on Wednesday. Galore interviews can be expected, looking at content left, right, and center. But for now, I've got just great music that is coming your way.
Osigelela, hey Africa, oh malupaga Yesu, lupaga Yesu, ondolayo, awiza imitanazo.
Tshwane FM is taking over Pretoria. Tshwane FM 93.6. The future is now. Call us now. 010-382-4936. That's 012-382-493.6.